Hello, everyone, and welcome to a special mid-June edition of ADP Chasing. Today, we are joined by special guest Jakob Sanderson to go over his biggest targets and fades. He is advising his readers to have zero exposure to Christian McCaffrey. That seems fair.
ADP chasing is for when you watch ship chasing, you go, these guys are just football guys.
In the targets per outrun leagues, that's going to be really nice.
Actually, back in if it's Ashane.
Stare into our crystal ball. Close your eyes. All your entries are going to lose anyway.
Yeah, that's fair.
This is a Deuce Vaughn show.
It's anti-cabal. It's anti the best ball thought leaders. I'm obviously lying to some degree because, I have a lot of both of these guys.
It's the most disgusting pick you can make. But, man.
Gets me
Intro still
every
gets
time.
me every time.
It's the most disgusting pick you can make, but man, really gets me.
The funny thing about that is that could have been one of 10 players.
No one knows who it was.
Yeah.
I'm an audio listener, so I've never actually seen the intro with the beautiful graphics that you guys have together. The whatever Illuminati guy that is
That's my favorite.
Davis,
yeah.
when he says it's anti-cabal is sent me. I was absolutely dying. That's so good.
Shout out Zach Lanners who put that together. Just a beautiful intro.
Zach Lanners has been putting together a lot of amazing ADP chasing clips over the past couple weeks. Some good highlights. So shout out to him. But anyways, Jakob, thanks for joining us today. Thanks for taking time away from your law career, I presume, to talk about Giants wide receivers. We really appreciate it.
I had a very busy hearing 2 weeks ago, so I've used this as an excuse to shave a couple billable hours here and there to record podcasts and leave early to watch finals games on the West Coast. So it's good timing for me.
Yeah, we got to start with a little bit of basketball talk here on ADP chasing.
God, yeah.
Jakob and I are both big Celtics fans, so.
Well, it's sort of unbelievable that people were picking the Mavericks, the ESPN panel.
80% of the public money was on the Mavs.
It just goes to show we are an enumerate nation. These are the people you're drafting best ball teams against, are people that look at a minus 300 favorite in an NBA series and say, no, thank you.
The funniest part is the best player in the Celtics has been bad through 2 games in the series, and it hasn't even really mattered. And not necessly bad, but not really carrying the team.
He's not our best player if you listen to Jason Kidd. So
that was such an obvious ploy to make the series about something that it wasn't, and it didn't even work. Just beautiful.
And it so would have worked 3 years ago. If this was 3 years ago and someone said that about Tatum, we would have seen about 19 fadeaways last night, and he would have made maybe one at best. But he's embraced his inner Rondo. He's focused on rebounding and passing right now. The shooting is absolutely abhorrent, but that's fine. This is what we are. We're committed to a team game, and not heliocentric offense. So. You hate to see it for all of the people on Twitter that were jumping all over the Mavs. It was really fun that everybody was so excited to pick Mavs because it's kind of boring to be we're the best team with a fringe top 10 player in the NBA, and everyone's picking us. But when everyone was all in on the Mavs, that's just
enjoy it while it lasts. There are some other teams that are younger and that are getting better, Jakob. So enjoy it while it lasts.
I love OKC, right? Shea is potentially the best Canadian basketball player of all time. So I'm in on.
I forgot that I do forget that he is Canadian.
And Dort too.
French.
You guys got 40% of our Olympic team starting 5 on your roster.
So they're basically They're basically when the Raptors get eliminated, you got to root for the Thunder.
Correct. I am a Celtics fan mostly because I didn't like the kids who were mean to me in grade school, and all of them were Raptors fans. So that's why I root for the Celtics, is to bring pain on them. And it's working right now.
Yeah, what is the origin story of your fandom, Jakob? Celtics fan for basketball, Colts for football.
I made these choices when I was 4, man. They don't make any rational sense. I
love that.
Revenge. We just heard it. We heard the origin story.
Revenge.
You grew up from Winnipeg. The only team that we had in my actual city at the time that I was growing up was the Blue Bombers, which is a CFL team. Love them. So that's a rational one. We didn't have the Jets. I would be a Jets fan if we had the Jets when I was a kid. I'm kind of half a Jets fan now, but I was already pretty addicted to the Leafs. The Colts were just the first team I ever watched. Like I turned on a football game. It was the AFC Championship game. It was the Colts and the Patriots, and I made the wrong choice. Like I don't know what to tell you. I wish I had chosen the other team, but I didn't. Like
I don't know. In the long run, it's starting to look a little better. You know,
what by long run? Do you mean like the next couple centuries, or what do you say?
Yeah, exactly.
Hey, buddy. Like I'm a Patriots fan this year. I don't know if anybody's seen my underdog exposures. Like we
yeah, I'm right there with you, man. Go Pats!
I got my foam finger.
We'll get into that later. We're going to go through in the show Jacob's players he's highest and lowest versus rankings, but wanted to start today with a little bit of news in the ADP risers and fallers world. Not a ton here. Two players I want to hit on. First, Braelon Allen, one of Davis's original brand plays.
I'm pissed. So this is pissing me off. Like, can we not have one guy? Can I not have one guy that I can just take in the 18th round that doesn't get ruined by big rankings?
Hey, buddy, you could have taken him in our game last week and you didn't.
I just okay. EstablishTheRun.com, LegendaryUpside.com. Do we really need to move Braelon Allen to running back 51? Is it necessary? Does it have to be done? Can we not just have one? Can we not just have one thing? And the answer
Sorry
is no.
for ranking well. What are you saying?
I'm not, it's fine. I'm just annoyed. I can't to end up with 30% Braelon Allen. I'm going to have to be taking him in like the 13th round.
Yeah, you will.
Yeah, you are.
And I'll do it.
All right.
You know.
But it is annoying.
So
you did it in the big board, you'll do it again.
Yeah. The news that has come through seems, I don't know, fairly solid to me that he's at least currently the number 2 running back. Clearly the team hates Izzy Abanikanda. Sorry, Pat.
They do. That's just a fact.
Yeah.
they hate him real bad.
It's never been more over for Abanikanda.
No, it's never been more. I mean, he's not making the roster. Like it is fully over.
No, Tariq Cohen's making the team over him.
Yeah, I'm in one group chat with a Jets beat writer, and during the draft, I texted him. I was like, "What the fuck are the Jets doing? Like, why do they keep drafting running backs? Like, isn't Abanikanda kind of good?" And he was like, "No, like they hate this person. They don't like what he does. They don't think he listens to them. It's not gonna happen." I was still holding out some hope as a slappy that Isaiah Davis might pull off the upset here, but I haven't heard anything like bad about him, but certainly in better shape than Abanikanda, but it seems like it's Allen at least for now. So I think he's a totally reasonable pick. If it gets to like the round 13, round 14, like I'm not going to do it. Like I still don't think that it's a total lock.
Yeah.
That he just, because the thing is, like, let's say he establishes himself ahead of Davis in camp, right? All that does is it gets you the number 2 role, which for as long as Breece Hall is healthy is not that useful. And then you kind of get a system where he then has to re-earn the job. Like if Breece Hall gets hurt, then all right, like I buy that Allen gets the first crack, but I don't think that it would just be like, here's your 90% snap share, Braelon Allen. I would expect it to be mostly Allen and some Davis. And if Davis then outplays him, like that could change very, very quickly. So I still think you need a lot to break right, in that I don't think it's still quite as clear cut as like you mentioned with a Marshawn Lloyd. I mean, it's not even going to be as good a situation as like Tyler Algier.
Yeah, I was going to bring up Algier because it's the Algier bet, but we don't know if he's good.
Well, yeah. I think we have a pretty good idea that he's pretty good. I mean, he did finish 3rd in the Big Ten in rushing when he was 17. So
what did he do with the next few years?
It's irrelevant. He was injured. He was injured. No, he was injured. It was fine.
Like the last time we did, he's only 17 memes. He started shooting 34% in the NBA Finals. So I don't know.
But it all worked out in the end. Here's the deal. Here's the deal with Braelon Allen. He's gonna score 8 rushing touchdowns in a 17-game healthy Breece Hall season.
Why? Why would he do that?
Because they gave the fucking fullback Bowden more carries inside the 5 than they gave Breece last year. They specifically went out and got Dalvin Cook for this role, and then Dalvin Cook was like, I don't
think that's what they got Dalvin Cook for. They got down, and they said as much. They got Dalvin Cook to help Breece get back to full health. Which is what they said at the time, and then that's what they did.
My opinion would be that drafting 2 running backs immediately and then giving Dalvin Cook $7 million last year is leading to the idea that they don't want Brees to get like 330 rushes a year. Like they
okay, sure, yeah.
I mean, maybe, but they drafted what? It was Allen in the very, very late 4th, right? Like a 4th round compensatory pick, and then they drafted Davis with a 5th round pick. Like, if you
6th, I think, but yeah,
6th round pick. So, like in our minds, Abanikanda existed, but in their minds, he already didn't, right? Like he was already off the team when they went into their draft boardroom that day. So if you're looking at it from that perspective, they effectively didn't have any other running backs on the team except for Hall. A 4th round compensatory pick is a totally reasonable price to pay for a backup running back. And then they take another stab. Like I think it's not that bearish for Hall. Like I'm not saying he won't play any snaps.
It's zero. It's 0% bearish for Hall. In no way do you interpret this as bearish for Hall.
I thought you were saying like Allen had the goal line role. That's what I thought you were saying.
No, I'm just saying Braelon Allen is like, I disagree with Jacob's analysis that he would be in like this like gross 50-50 timeshare with Isaiah Davis. I think he's better than that. I'm making a talent-based bet that he's better than that. And also, I think he's got this decent running back 2 role, and I think he will get some goal line short yardage stuff, which can be valuable, especially on half PPR.
He's really big.
He's a big dude.
Big guy. The next Riser follower I want to get into here, again, not a lot of news this week. I will point out quickly, Nick Chubb, we had this conversation last week. He continues to plummet.
Becoming draftable.
Yeah, almost becoming draftable.
I made the case he was draftable. Last night. Okay. I made the case he was draftable in like the 130s into the leg up crew and was just booed. They just shouted down. So we moved him down. But I do think he's at some point he's draftable.
Yeah, at some point. Yeah. Again, we went over it last week, but the team added
last night 134.
130. Okay, yeah.
Yeah.
That seems
like
fine.
Again, you could interpret it as like a fan base play, a locker room play. The Browns could have cut Nick Chubb. Instead, they tacked on $2 additional million in guaranteed to his deal. Again, that signals to me they expect him to play this year. So yeah, once you get to 140s and you're picking between him and
it's like it's
Chandler or whatever, then
you
I think
treat him like
totally
a contingent value guy at that point,
Yeah.
right? Where it's like Ty Chandler's giving me a bunch of zeros, but what if he doesn't? And then you're like, all right, yeah.
Yeah, I had a team where I started, I think, 6 wide receivers in the first 7 or 8 rounds. So I was already done drafting wide receivers. And I had I can't remember exactly who, but I had a couple of like boring guys that were going to play early. And then it was like, all right, like it's literally Chubb, like Charbonnet and Corm were already gone too. And it's like Chubb or like Chandler or Lloyd or Wright. And I was like, I'll just take Chubb. Like, why not mix him in here? I think he's going to be like, at the very least, you might get, I don't know. Well, I think that he's draftable. I disagree that we should just like write him off entirely from contributing. Like, I remember we've seen guys like come back kind of earlier than we think. And then even if they're not particularly effective, like
Javonte last year is maybe a good example, right?
Yeah, Javonte is a good example too, where it's like he wasn't particularly good, but I mean, we're drafting him next to Zeke. He's not particularly good. Like I don't know that you need it to be like Nick Chubb is Nick Chubb again when we're drafting him as around straight backup running backs. So I think it's fine.
Best pure rusher in the NFL, though. Have you considered that?
Part of the problem with Chubb, I think, is we're all drafting now. Like, who's drafting now? It's people that are not only going to be drafting late in the summer, but are like thinking about what the market is going to do from now till late in the summer. And Chubb is probably going to fall. There's going to be a period where he falls even more because he's going to. I know it seems like it should be fully priced in, but I don't know that when it's like very clear he's starting the season on PUP, I think he falls on that news. So
he doesn't start the season on the PUP.
He's gonna.
So remember the James Robinson thing 2 years ago? Now he ended up sucking, but everybody was like, "Oh, like he's not even on the board. Like he might not even play at all this season." And then it was like, "Oh, he's not starting on the PUP. Actually, he's starting in week 1. He's the starting running back for the Jacksonville Jaguars." And then he moved like massively up. Like
That's. I mean,
Yeah, like,
who knows?
Zach's already challenging me to a bet. I'm not saying I think this is the most likely scenario.
It's not.
I think that the market at his current price, like 128 now, I think that reflects like an 80% he starts on the pop. And I think that's accurate. Like before I would have said it's reflecting like not enough of a chance. I think it's probably close to a good aggregate. Like once we know he's starting on the pop, how much further would you drop him? Like I wouldn't drop him further than like the 140 to 150 range. And if
that's where we have him now,
we've not on the pop, then he's probably going at like the 90s or early hundreds.
Yeah, I suppose. We've got him in the 140s.
Yeah. So again, just going back to the injury timeline stuff with Chubb, he had surgery on November 11th. If you do a 9-month timeline from there, which is sort of the minimum for an ACL tear, but would be optimistic for the type of multi-ligament ACL tear that Chubb had, 9 months from the surgery date would be week 2. So again, yeah, I don't think it's 100% impossible he doesn't start the season on the pop, but I think that should be the expectation right now. And I do agree with Crane that once we get news he is on the pop, which I don't know, I'd put at 80-90% that he's going to be on the pop. I think
totally fair.
He does fall further. So yeah, for me, it's like once he's in the 130s, 140s, he's a guy I'm okay mixing in. Certainly not a target, but not like I was 100% fading Chubb until now.
Totally.
Now that's no longer my stance. So yeah,
like I have target exposures on my ranks, and when I first released them, I had him at 0% target exposure. I have not moved him. Like I think he's in the same place that I had him since then, but he's moved up to 4% target exposure just based on his ADP moving down. So that's where I'm at now. I'm still not targeting him.
It is like, today I was just in a draft right before this, and Chubb was falling, and I believe he was available in the 130s or I think late 130s. But I took Eckler, who I'm like, I think you're also dust, but you're healthy. You're starting the year healthy. So, I took Eckler, and then Chubb almost made it all the way back. And I was like, man, this running back room is going to be pretty dusty if I take both. I considered he didn't make it.
Who do I have ranked higher to those?
But that's where I'm like,
I have Chubb ranked higher actually by one spot.
Yeah, that to me is tough because it's like Eckler, you can kind of squint and maybe he's got contingent value at the very least. Maybe they check down a little bit more. Davis, weren't you the one who pointed out that Daniels played with Rachaad White? Who noted that? Maybe it was
correct.
Okay.
Yeah, they played together. They played together at Arizona State.
So like he supported Rachaad White as a pass catcher. Maybe he's more willing to support a pass catch running back than we're assuming. So anyway, just like Chubb,
Eckler could be an all-time. We couldn't see the forest for the trees, where it was just like, oh, he just had this awful ankle injury last year, and actually it turns out he's fine. And Brian Robinson is the most replacement level man alive, and there's a round 1-ish running back value in that running back 38. Like it's like I can't.
It's like Brian Robinson equals Rojo of like 2022.
Exactly.
He's Fournette.
Or equals Fournette.
I could see it. I could see it.
Basically that. Yeah.
Yeah, so I mean, like Eckler's someone.
I don't want to live in that reality, but yeah, no. I guess.
I mean, in that reality also assumes that Jaden Daniels is late stage Tom Brady.
That is different. Yeah,
that seems a little different. Seems a little bit different to me.
He's a little more willing to take hits than late stage Tom Brady. You got to give him that.
Yeah, that's true.
Yeah. Jaden Daniels, 43 receptions to Rachaad White. Second most receptions on the team, 2021.
What's more likely, Davis's reality or the reality that Brian Robinson gets hurt and get ready to learn 17 carries for Chris Rodriguez?
I'm into that reality. Chris Rodriguez is a dog. I'm into that reality. He's a good round 20 click, I think.
I just can't see it with Eckler. I mean, I'd feel better about the Eckler thing if at least the NFL did the Dalvin Cook or the Zeke thing last year where they actually paid him money. Like, at least I could tell myself, oh, the NFL still believes in Austin Eckler a little bit. They gave him less money than Antonio Gibson guaranteed. So,
I mean, it's not ideal. I'm not taking a lot of Eckler, but when someone's available in the 130s,
sure, yeah.
I'm like, yeah, okay, I'll take it. But the thing with Chubb is I kind of want him to be, I want it to be Chubb or Jalen Wright. you know? And I'm like, well, I don't even know if Jalen Wright's going to play. Like, I don't know what Jalen Wright is. So, like, maybe Chubb a little at that point. Like
Jalen Wright is like such a favorite to be the Tyrion Davis Price pick of the year.
He has some real TDP
I got 19% Jalen Wright. It's week 5. He hasn't been active yet, and I'm wondering what the hell is going on.
You know who else wasn't active in week 1? Devon Achane last year.
I said week 5. I said week 5.
Being active is vastly overrated.
Signed a Nick Chubb drafter.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
Well, actually, Tyrone
over
Tracy,
under activation onto the active roster first. Jalen Wright or Nick Chubb.
A Tyrone Tracy drafter probably is going to be sweating being active. Week
I don't think
because,
so. I think Tracy's still draftable.
Buddy.
He's gonna be active.
I don't know, man.
He's a kick returner.
Oh, okay. Good point.
Well,
how many points do you get for that?
On why Tracy is.
You're the Travis Homer guy. You're the king of active because of special teams. You love active because of special teams. In the 18th round, I can't interest you in active because it's a rookie. It's because it's a rookie. If he was 28, you'd be like, oh, he's a kick returner, guys. Don't you know?
Dindles, that is the most ridiculous FUD. Jeff Wilson is not going to be like, maybe he's going to be active over Wright in week 1. If there's an injury to one of these other guys, like Jalen Wright I think Jalen Wright got picked because last year they were like, man, when one of our 2 fast guys goes down and we have to put this human sludge Jeff Wilson onto the field, like we're not very good at offense. Jalen Wright is dusting Jeff Wilson. Don't you worry about that, Ben.
Well, Jalen Wright is going to end up being like a cowboy or something annoying.
Tracy is really yucking my yum right now. I think Jalen Wright's a great pick.
Tracy is falling because Eric Gray is the running back 2.
Right. Well, of course he's the running back 2. It's June 10th.
I don't think I don't really think that's how that works. Like, I don't think Eric Gray is like so entrenched that he's getting like veteran respect. I think they've just decided he's the second best running back on the team right now. I mean,
there
Eric Gray
was some positive comments about Tracy. He was like, Dayball. I talked about this on Legendary Cycles, but it was it was a 3.5 hour pod, so people probably didn't get to it. But Dayball was like, basically like, I thought this guy was probably going to show up and like not know what he was doing, but they like kind of knew what he was doing. It was pretty sweet. It was like that kind of level of comment.
That's good. I like that. That. That's good to hear.
Yeah.
I think that, I don't know. I'm not really clicking either Tracy or Gray right now because I feel like I want a little bit more certainty before I waste a pick when I could just pick Elijah Mitchell instead or someone like that.
Yeah, come on, dude. You could just take Rondale Moore. You know?
Yeah, I think Elijah Mitchell over these guys is totally fine. I would say I think they both are active. That's it because of the kick returning ability for Tracy. I think Tracy also has the higher floor, weirdly, because he's the converted receiver and will be potentially used as like in a specialized role. Where Gray, it's like kind of more all or nothing. He's either the RB2 or he's not, and then he's useless. Like, what is Eric Gray RB3 on the Giants is a total 0. You don't want that.
I mean, we're not really drafting Eric Gray. I don't think. Like
I'm taking him occasionally. I'm taking
him.
Really?
Yeah.
On DraftKings, on DraftKings round 20, I'm taking him.
I mean, I guess, but he stinks, and the Giants stink.
You know, I think we use he stinks a bit too liberally because, like, he was so much better of a player in college than Tyrone Tracy. Like, I think he had more yards his final season in Oklahoma than Tracy had in like 9 seasons in college.
Yeah, I pulled this up.
Now in his 8th season, I think he broke out a little.
Yeah,
I think he had like 100
exactly a spring chicken coming out of college. Like, he did an entire career at Tennessee, and then his like senior's lap at Oklahoma. Like, he's productive and capable, but I don't know, like overaged, not very athletic, okay receiver. Like,
Devin Singletary, right? That's we want to bet against Devin Singletary. Yeah.
Jacob, meet the starting running back.
This is why we're taking the other guys. Any other guys I will take because you just described the starter.
Fair enough.
Correct.
That's fair.
That's fair.
Let's end the
Welcome to the show.
Tracy, Eric Gray discourse. Get to something a little more exciting. So here I pulled in Jacob's biggest targets, essentially where he's highest ADP, highest on his ranks versus ADP. And 3 players jump out here. He's got Drake Maye, Jalen Polk, and Javon Baker all in his top 10 biggest targets. Jacob.
You're just doing your rankings off my exposures, Jacob? Is that how you're doing?
Jacob, I'm so worried. Like if we're playing the "Aren't you worried" game, I'm so worried that Drake Maye is just not going to play this year, and that I have 100 dead teams. Please
That's
help
fine.
me.
I wasn't gonna win anyway.
Yeah. Okay. Hey, I'm back in.
Yeah. I mean, lifelong Patriots fan over here, obviously. I think legitimately, like, I just don't understand what it is that we're doing, especially with the receivers. If you want to be a total fodder and say that, Drake Maye, like he's not going to play, whatever. Like, I understand that, especially because there are, I think, a lot of actually really good late round quarterback options that's reasonable to me. Yeah. But I don't understand at all what's happening with the receivers. Like, you get multiple outs on the receivers. If Drake Maye is sitting the whole year, that's probably because Jacoby Brissett is playing reasonably. Like, I don't at all buy the FUD that they're just going to accept being the absolute worst in Gerard Mayo's first year as an NFL coach and just like watch the offense be inept and not put in the other guy. I highly doubt that is going to occur. That might even be the plan now. I think plans change when you're getting ripped apart on Fegler, Maz, whatever that Boston show is, and they're just like torching you on a day-to-day basis. So
think about Robert Kraft too. Robert Kraft is an old man. He's not going to want to see Drake Maye if they're 1-7. I think he's going to want to see it.
Kraft loves Jacoby Brissett.
Kraft also, I think, influenced the pick of the. Yeah, he loves him. He's 7 losses away from not loving him so much.
This is.
I think love is fleeting. I think love is fleeting from Mr. Kraft. Just check out his marriage history.
This is according to Rudman. So Rudman, I assume, knows. I mean, Jacob, this is what the market is thinking. These are what Patriots wide receivers did last season with comparable quarterback play. 49.
Don't think they have comparable quarterback play.
I mean, it was really bad. The Patriots wide receiver situation. Look, I'm with you, but I understand why these guys are all free. Like, I get why the market is just giving them to me.
So I'm going to push. Like, I understand why in the sense that I have heard the reasons and I've used my ears to listen to them, but I don't understand why internally. Like, last year, their quarterback play was Mac Jones and Bailey Zappi. This year, it'll either be Jacoby Brissett being good enough to hold off Drake Maye, or Drake Maye, who I think we're all very excited about from a talent perspective. All of the receivers, like the ones that we're drafting, other than Demario Douglas, are all different. They're different dudes, different offensive coordinator, different everything. Like, I'm not very tied to what happened last year with a totally different group of people, totally different coaching staff. I think you can play this either way, where if Brissett is good, one of these receivers I think is still going to be a hit. And then if you get the Maye scenario where he's like good, then everybody can come along with him. And they're also cheap that I think you just play them on aggregate and let the chips fall. Like, I'm sure one of Baker or Polk or Douglas probably the narrowest band here. One of Polk or Baker is probably useless. Like, that's probably a reasonable take. That's fine. They're cheap. If Maye is legit,
but these
one
guys
of them is
play
probably going to
different
smash.
positions.
And that's huge.
Polk and Baker are different positions, so they could both.
Well, they could.
I think they're both outside receivers. I think Tomorrow's in the slot.
I think
I just mean
probably
from a probability
Polk
perspective of like prospecting. Like the odds that both these guys are great. It's just like probably not very high. But I don't think it's like impossible. It's just you're taking an aggregate bet on a situation with a lot of upside that isn't priced in, and just letting it happen for you. And I think with Maye, it's more binary. Like, if the fear comes true that he's not going to play much this year, which I still don't think is true. I still think he would be, like, if I was setting the over-under line on week that he starts playing football, I would still set it at like 4.5. But I think that you can win either way with the receivers is my point, which is I think the best way to play it if you want to have access to all scenarios for the Patriots.
Yeah, Anthony in the chat says, "Get ready to learn." That's fair, bud. I completely agree. I mean, a couple things I would add. Madison Parkhill had a good post over the weekend on this, saying basically he's not that in on Maye as a pick, but because of some of the advance rate concerns that we get when quarterbacks sit for a long time. And I think, he could sit for 7 weeks. He could sit for 8 weeks. That's not out of the realm of possibility. The stuff that I hear of what if he sits the whole season? What if the Patriots are making a playoff run and he sits the whole season? I mean, I guess, yeah, some weird stuff happens, it's a crazy world, but like I'm making a limited amount of bets this year. That's not one of them. They have the lowest win total in the league. I don't think that's very realistic. I think what would be realistic is I took Drake Maye. Drake Maye crushes in week 17. All of those teams are dead because they didn't advance. And if I played it a little bit differently, I could have benefited from Drake Maye crushing by drafting quarterbacks who actually started the whole year and targeting his receivers, which is kind of what Madison was advising. I think one way to do that is grab some Justin Herbert, who's super cheap, and you can use those guys as springbacks.
You do Herbert and Palmer, or if you're me, Herbert and QJ, and then just don't tell anyone about it. And then you take Polk and Baker, and you are just set up. It's so good in that hypothetical universe.
Yeah, Herbert, and you can push Herbert too if you're willing to take Maye because you have Maye.
If you take Ladd, you can push Herbert because no one else wants him.
Right, and I take a fair amount of Ladd, so I think Ladd's going to move up. So getting him in the 6 now feels fine to me. But I think the receivers, also Hunter Henry seems like a pretty good pick to me. I've been taking a lot of him. I mean, they're talking. The running backs are good picks. Ramondre's super cheap for the potential to be the lead back. Did you see the
news today? Ramondre is talking extension with the New England Patriots.
Wow, that's big.
Wow, it really is a new day in New England. We're paying replacement level running backs, not my Patriots.
Yeah.
But there's a number of pieces. Like the whole offense is just really, really cheap. So I think you can play it even if you're not drafting Maye. But I guess the biggest counter to me on Maye is Bo Nix is going to start the whole year.
That's what I was going to say. I was going to say, gun to your head, fate of the universe. You have to do Marvin Mims, Bo Nix, Greg Dulcich, or Hunter Henry, Drake Maye, KJ Osborne. Which one are you doing? You're almost certainly
Maye,
doing.
for sure.
Oh, see, I was going to say you're almost certainly doing fate of the universe, the Bo Nix one.
Yeah, I mean, I think.
What am I trying to do? Like.
You're trying to save the goddamn universe, Craig.
Is the universe saved if I finish 7th in my pool?
Yeah, how do I save the universe? Like, do I need to advance?
Up to interpretation. Up to interpretation. What do you think the aliens are asking of you?
They want to see us win. We're taking Drake Maye.
Fallacy, Davis. What you're doing right now is when you're like on the CBS halftime show, and you're like, I get you go for 4th downs in Madden, but when you're in the NFL playoffs and it's 4th and 3, you can't do that. You got to punt the football.
I mean, look, I believe Drake Maye is my most drafted quarterback on underdog.com right now. In fact, I know it is because I looked this morning. But I'd be lying if I said I'm not worried.
You fucking nihilist. What are you doing? You said Bo Nix is the key to saving the universe.
I'm worried. I'm very worried that it's going to be week 10 and I'm going to be like, where the fuck is Drake Maye? Where is he? I haven't seen him. Is he okay?
You shouldn't be worried about that. That's what is going to happen. Just be prepared for the inevitability. It's
all right.
I think the positive thing
is.
Go ahead. Yeah, I was just gonna say that I think the positive thing with Maye though is, compared to other quarterbacks going around him, I'm actually much more worried about some other quarterbacks' odds of finishing the season at quarterback.
Yeah,
Geno Smith. If Seattle's struggling down the stretch, they traded equivalent of like a 3rd round pick for Sam Howell.
Geno is not finishing the season.
Yeah, so Geno, Kirk Cousins. If the Falcons aren't making
Kirk
the playoffs,
Cousins is a sneaky one. If they don't make the playoffs, we're seeing Penix.
Exactly. Right.
Derek, put me in jail.
Derek Carr, Spencer Rattler, maybe at the end of the season if the Saints are out of the play. Like, there's a lot of these quarterbacks going late that could easily be benched to end the season. So I don't know. With Maye, at least
Carr
I feel
has to
confident.
implode a little bit because he's like they cannot move on after the year. He
51 mil.
Yeah,
move on from Derek.
So Carr really has to.
Yeah. I'm not even saying it's like because they're moving on from him. I just think some of these like aging quarterbacks, if they're a little bit banged up to end the year and their team's out of the playoffs, like if the Jets are out of the playoffs and Aaron Rodgers has like a sore calf, you don't think he's sitting if they're out of it? Like I don't know. Like I feel like with these young rookies,
wins the election.
Is it before? I was going to say, is it before November? Are they out before November?
World events might have something to say about it.
Yeah.
So I don't know. You can make these cases for so many veteran quarterbacks too. I feel with Maye, we're getting him starting at the end of the season. That's what I'm focused on most. So I'm not that worried.
My question was going to be like, I understand you probably do a little bit of both, but your preference for a Drake Maye team or say a McCarthy team too, I think is kind of a similar bet. 3 quarterback team or 2 quarterback team paired with an elite. What's your preference? I'm with 3.
3 now. Yeah, it was 2 when it started, and then Maye was playing behind Bailey Zappi at training camp, and I was like, maybe these should just
Not
be
anymore.
quarterback teams.
Moving up. We're moving up to number 2.
I think I'm still 2 if it's an elite, like Allen, right? Or like
or something, yeah.
Or Hurts. Yeah. Like I want it to be an elite.
I think I'm 3 just because I would hate to have like the late season Maye hit, the elite quarterback who goes off in the playoffs, but I lost because Jalen Hurts missed 2 weeks with a sprained ankle and I had 0 points at quarterback for 2 weeks. Like that would just be, I think, a pretty massive bummer. I still do it on occasion, especially with some of the later bye week guys, but I prefer 3. And part of why I love Maye so much this year is that I just prefer 3 quarterbacks kind of generally in this environment.
Well, early.
Good late round quarterback.
Because of how much I like Herbert at cost, Lawrence at cost, Redacted at cost, Levis at cost, Fields.
The thing is in May and June, you want to do 3 quarterback teams and then weed that out in August and July when you know who's going to be making teams. I also just want to make this point. I survived a season where Trey Lance didn't play and Justin Fields didn't start until, what was it, week 8, if I recall correct. Like I advanced 19% of my teams that season.
Like week 3.
No, for sure it was not week 3.
No, he was just so bad when he played that it felt
that it basically didn't count. So in other words, instead of paying round 6 Trey Lance, who just got me 0 week after week, I'm going to pay round 18 zeros, and that feels fine.
Totally reasonable.
That's fair.
Yeah. The last thing I wanted to say on Polk, I thought this was interesting in going through the wide receivers. JJ Zacharyson comes out with a statistical model for these wide receivers, factors in both their production profile and draft capital, and I think some combine metrics potentially. He basically has Polk, McConkey, and Coleman like exactly tied from just his modeling perspective. I thought that was interesting when both Coleman and McConkey go at pick 70 and you get Polk basically at pick 150. Obviously, I understand like why Coleman and McConkey go later, but I don't know. Like for Polk, if you just say, hey, Rome Odunze is one of the best wide receiver prospects of the last decade, and Polk would have been a lot better if he wasn't playing
and Jalen
him.
McMillan sits Chris Godwin on the bench. All of a sudden, Jalen Polk.
Yeah, like it's not that much of a leap to just see Polk being a huge, like he doesn't have to be that good to be a value at pick 150, but again, he was not drafted that much later than guys who were picking in the 6th round of fantasy drafts right now.
He's 6-7 picks later than Worthy or something.
Yeah.
I think it was on Ship Chasing. Someone in the chat was like, "Oh, this feels expensive though," and it's like, he's the 2nd round pick. This is not expensive.
Round pick.
Yeah, like. I don't know. He's my highest drafted receiver. Like I think Jalen Polk is a smash. You can use him as a bring back. He sets up the Drake Maye stuff. Yeah, Baker's my 3rd highest. I'm drafting both these guys pretty aggressively.
My highest is my highest is Legette, and then my 2nd highest is Waddle, and then 3rd is Polk.
Guys,
I skipped. Yeah, go ahead, Davis.
Who's my top drafted wide receiver?
It's got to be Xavier
Debo.
It's actually not Worthy. It's Wicks. I know ball. I know ball.
Oh my God, Dontavian Wicks.
Yeah, I mean,
can't we have one wide receiver ADP? All the wide receivers are screaming up. Can't we have one?
Yeah. We're all looking for the guy who did this.
Wait,
moving on here to Josh down. Jacob, if you mentioned Legette, you also have him on here.
Yeah.
If you want to talk about him,
sure.
Is the Legette thing similar to Polk? Just high draft capital, goes really cheap.
Totally a similar thing to Polk.
Yeah.
I mean, I had him like tiers higher as a prospect pre-draft, and he does go in the 1st round. I think he's been, in my opinion, like an underrated prospect, especially from a best ball perspective, in the sense that I thought he was a very boom bust prospect coming out, where you have like an older guy. And that's the issue, is you don't have the early production and you have age. But then the peak production is really, really impressive. 24% targets per route run, over 3 yards per route run in the SEC. And an older prospect gets 1st round draft capital. So all that put together, I look at it as a guy who he's boom bust overall. But if he's going to hit, I think you would know it right away based on his age and based on the draft capital opportunity. So, I mean, I'm drafting him in Dynasty too, because I just think his price is kind of unreasonably assuming he's a bust. But from a best ball perspective, especially where the bust opportunity is less detrimental, like you're just buying access to what if the guy's good and he figured it out. I mean, I don't see any issues with opportunity here. It's Thielen who's going to play, but I don't think he's going to be that hard to kick out of 2 wide receiver sets if Legette is good. And there's like no competition to get into 3 wide receiver sets. So Legette's running to me 70% of the routes week 1. And if he's good, he's going to be running 90% of the routes pretty darn soon. I'm not like 100% sure Bryce Young sucks. He was still the number 1 overall pick. He was a phenomenal college prospect. We have seen a history of rookie quarterbacks like Goff, Matthew Stafford, Trevor Lawrence, like these elite level prospects that struggle year 1 have bounced back at a high rate. And the entire market is treating the Panthers like they're 100% doomed. They invested a lot on the offensive line. They have a really strong play caller now in Canales. I think this spot is just underrated. I think Legette to me is like, as a first round pick, it's like totally a wide receiver window player that we should be willing to consider. And I feel like the way people are talking about him is like he's this horrendous prospect that has no chance. I'm not saying he's a conventionally great prospect, but like even
he reminds me.
I had him. I preferred him to like Keon Coleman, and I get he's in a way worse spot, but he's going like 7 rounds later, and I think he's in that tier as a prospect, not like in a whole different group.
How many snaps for Jonathan Mingo week 1 last year for the Carolina Panthers?
I think like an uncomfortably large amount,
like 80% routes or something.
87%, then 98% his first 2 games in the NFL. I grant your opinion is true, which is that if Legette is good, it's going to be like an insane home run. You're going to be like, you were going to run into 8 targets a week for a guy like that at that range of the draft. You can't find that. I don't grant the conceit that he's good. I think he's bad. So I take Jermaine Burton and Jalen Polk
the possibility
instead.
He's good. Like, is he that? Like, why is he such?
I'm not
saying he's a good prospect, but why is he like an outlierly awful prospect? I just don't really get that.
It's because they drafted Jonathan Mingo last year, and everyone's.
It's because they drafted Jonathan Mingo last year,
right? Who was worse?
Yeah, but I think honestly I think that's just I'm not saying that's a good reason to be down on him. I think that's what's in people's heads for this ADP. And Nick in the chat makes a good comparison. Xavier Legette is to Jonathan Mingo as Rashee Rice was to Sky Moore. People are doing the same pattern matching that's not predictive at all, which is why I'm also in on Legette. Like Jonathan Mingo being bad, even though Legette vaguely reminds people of him potentially, it has nothing to do with him, obviously. So I'm with you. Like these rookie wide receivers, I'm always betting on these first round wide receivers that the market doesn't like. I did it with Jahan Dotson when he was a rookie. That turned out to be a small hit. I did it last year with Mingo.
Colts wide receiver that they took in the first round.
Philip Dorsett.
Yeah.
Yeah. Like in best ball, I just think these guys are like always good picks, and Polk falls into that bucket as well.
Agreed.
Yeah, one thing I would note with Legette, because I'm at 9%, and I was at one point fairly high on him, but he struggled with the hamstring throughout a lot of the early stuff, and he is raw, right? Like I don't think even if you're saying he's boom bust because he's kind of raw. Like he said that he basically needed to work on his route running, but basically he did it this offseason. Like in between playing college football and now he's like fixed it. I'm like, okay.
We had over 3 yards per route run in the SEC before he could even run a route. Like now I'm
route running. Now
we can also run routes.
That's fair.
Sick, dude.
I was just saying, like, I don't want this guy missing any of the offseason program, and the fact that he already has, and it makes me wonder, like, does this linger? Does he, if he tweaks it again at training camp, is he going to plummet? So I've just been like cooling off a little. I'm more like at ADP now. I do think if training camp starts to look pretty solid, I'll be back in. Like I was before.
Is 42% cool enough for you?
Okay, Jacob. I have.
Good Lord, man.
I've got 31% Jermaine Burton, and 0% have not taken Xavier Legette once. talk me out of that distribution. Tell me why I should be doing things differently.
Are you into
Legette
starting
could
wide
be the-
receivers at all?
Legette is a first-round pick who could be the number 1 wide receiver on his team by like week 4. Burton is a third-round pick who might play 20% of the snaps for the first half of the season.
Oh, come on. 20%. Behind who? Charlie Jones?
What if they... Charlie
Ross.
Jones is a slot wide
Ross.
receiver. Burton isn't. Like, Burton is dependent on him playing outside and Chase moving into the slot and 3 wide receiver sets, which I think
now,
is
what
possible.
if I also hate
But Burton needs
We'll
to be
get
good
some of
enough
that.
for them to rearrange their team.
Or Higgins can
in
kick
order
in
to-
as a big old slot.
I mean,
Who gets
they
a
could.
35
It's
on
also-
that stuff alone?
Like Burton's one of my most highest drafted players in Dynasty. Granted, I take him after Legette, but like, I don't know. Why is the first round pick better than the third round pick? Like, because he's a first round pick instead of a third round pick. Like that's basically my answer.
Yeah, and I mean, like they're actually sort of similar in a sense in that they both had reasons why their production was weird in college. Burton because he's a dick and his coaches didn't like him, and Legette because he had this like insanely tumultuous personal life to the point that I believe he did not have 400 college yards before last
He
season,
did not.
which is pretty gnarly.
How
But
high do you think we're going to draft the wide receiver that the Bengals take next year after they immediately sour on Burton?
oh, so like
Seventh
yes,
round?
you
Sixth round?
you make a great point. Like T Higgins is a Jet.
T. Higgins is gone.
T.
Yeah.
Higgins is a Jet. Burton, they're like, dude, please do not even show
Quentin
up. Like, we're
Burton.
so sick of you. Yeah.
Yeah. Wait, let me ask Jacob. What are you doing with Deontay? Because you just said Legette could be the
drafting a
number
shit ton.
1. You are
Yeah.
drafting a shit ton, so you're just taking swings at this offense.
I'm just like, yeah, I'm in on any offense that is quarterbacked by a young player who the market is convinced has zero chance to be good. So like I'm just drafting a shit ton of Patriots. I'm drafting a shit ton of Panthers. I'm drafting a shit ton of Broncos. And I'm gonna bet that one of
What
those
about
pays
Titans?
off.
Are you drafting the Titans?
Well, I want to. My issue is I just don't actually really like their wide receiver ADPs as much as I do with the other guys. Like I do see it as a similar situation, except I have to pay higher prices, and like Ridley, I just don't think is a good pick at cost. I think Hopkins is a fine pick at cost, like certainly not bad, but I do like Deontay better, and they go basically back to back. I really like the Titans running backs. That's probably where I'm getting the majority of my exposure. And then I would take more Levis, except I just don't really know how to stack them. Like I don't want to be rolling out. Like I feel like if Levis hits in a big way, I
Levis
want to have
Chig
the
is
Ridley
not what you
Hopkins
need.
stops. Like I don't
Yeah.
want to be rolling like, oh, I showed up with my Levis, Boyd, Spears, Chig stack. Like that just feels not great. But I don't know how much.
I think
Calvin
Boyd
Ridley
is
I
pretty
want to
draftable
draft.
if you have Levis, though.
Totally draftable, but I don't want him to be my number 1
Yeah.
receiver of my Levis.
No.
stack.
No. Yeah, I agree.
Let's
Yeah.
move on
I'm in
to
on Deontay,
Josh.
though. I think he's just good and underpriced.
Yeah, that seems fair. Let's move on to Josh Downs here. Jacob has him 25
Oh,
picks
okay.
ahead of ADP. Obviously, this is just Colts bias, right? You don't actually think he's good.
I mean, dude, I'll tell you what. As a Colts fan, first of all, I'm not a very like my Celtics fandom. I'm like a toxic, biased homer. My Colts fandom is not that. Like I've been doing fantasy enough that comes first, and I have had several negative takes on Colts players in the past. If there's one player who I do have like a legitimate homer bias towards, it's Downs, just from the sense of if it is 3rd and 6 and I see the ball in the air, as soon as I see that number 1 is who the ball is going to, I feel peace and calm. Like that guy just makes every catch. He is absolutely good. His yards per route run and his targets per route run were trending towards like really strong ranges until he gets hurt in, I want to say it was the London game or just before that, or the Germany game. Sorry. He ends up taking, I think he misses maybe only 1 week. He plays kind of smaller snaps. His targets per run really falls during the next few weeks. And that has kind of dragged down some of his season-long numbers. His reception perception over the whole year is incredible. 93rd percentile versus man coverage in Harmon's full season charting. He was also elite in the midseason charting, which came right before the injury. I get that the upside case is probably a little bit harder to see because Pittman is there, and that's the best way to describe Pittman is he's there. And then AD Mitchell is an interesting guy who I'm not sure what he'll be as a player, but he very much poses route concerns to Downs on 2 wide receiver sets. But I just view Downs as like, he's kind of like a Jakobi Meyers-esque bet where he might not be the biggest home run pick, but he's just a clearly a good wide receiver who's priced around bad wide receivers. And I don't really know why.
Yeah, that's what I'm struggling with downs is what is the upside? And normally, like, that's a weird thing to care about right at pick 131, except that I feel like the market is giving us a lot of wide receivers in this range that I do think have really strong upside cases like Wicks and Polk and Legette. So that's where I'm struggling a little bit is with this Colts offense. I know they're going to be fast paced, but it's still, we're talking about Anthony Richardson led team. It's probably not going to be top, 10 in the NFL in pass attempts. Pittman's going to be there. He's probably going to be a 3 wide receiver set only player, I think. So I agree with you that, like, I think Josh Downs is a good player. And say if he was on the Chiefs or the Bills, I would be like shoving, all the chips in at this price. But the team concerns, I guess the systemic concerns, I would put it, have me struggling a bit with Downs at this
But
price.
I mean, it's 131. Like, the systemic concerns have me pretty much out on Michael Pittman at his price. But once you get down into the hundreds, I'm taking AD Mitchell and I'm taking Josh Downs. I'm at 16% Downs. I think he's a really strong pick. One thing that he allows you to do is you kind of like flip your bets, basically. Like you mentioned, you could take like the swings with Legette and Wicks and those kind of bigger home run cracks. You could also do that in like round 7 instead of taking a JSN or a Deontay Johnson and go with a Rashee Rice, right? Or like a Keon Coleman, a Brian Thomas. Go with like some of those more big swings, especially, for the late season stuff. And then you get a Josh Downs who's kind of helping you fill out your wide receiver room in the early going. And like, especially if he's correlated with Richardson, which is obviously pretty easy to do. It's not just about the early season. I mean, you could be the guy he throws a couple touchdowns to in one of the playoff weeks. And so he's a big stacking priority for me when I have Richardson, but I also think he kind of fits some room. And I'm doing a lot of like Rome Odunze, Ladd McConkey, like these guys in the 6th round, which are pretty poor bets for early season production for the price I paid. So then I can go tack on guys like, I'm drafting some Sutton, I'm drafting some Lockett, I'm drafting some Mike Williams, I'm drafting Josh Downs as guys who are like, they're going to help me fill out the room, give me stuff you're usually paying for in the 6th or 7th round, but that's where you have to draft upside. So I draft a little bit more kind of like the Jakobi Meyers type bet, although I'm not taking that much Meyers specifically.
I'll also say this for Downs, like we often do this as a fantasy community where we overrate our ability to separate like true ceilings from like, are they good directionally? And like Josh Downs is 22 years old. He was an extraordinarily productive college prospect. He has just lit up, like I had mentioned, separation stats versus man coverage. Like, if the AD Mitchell thing is a legitimate roadblock. Although, I mean, talk about boom bust prospects, like it's certainly within the realm of possibilities that he's just not good. And to be clear, I'm also overweight on him. But like I don't buy that like Josh Downs is just permanently incapable. There's no chance that he could ever just like play in 2 wide receiver sets. Like I don't think it's likely. I don't think that's their plan, but he's good. He's very young. He can separate. I don't see why it's totally out of the realm of possibilities. And then the last thing I would say is I think you want to be targeting the AFC South directionally. Like the Colts are going to play at a really high pace. They play indoors. Their defense is trash, especially their secondary. The Jaguars defense is mediocre. They play at a reasonable pace. The Titans look like a team that could really make major strides in pace and in play volume. And then the Texans, of course, are one of the most fun teams in the NFL. They also all play the NFC North, which is another really fun offensive division where you get the Packers, you get the Lions, you get the Vikings, you get the new Bears. Like, I just think there's going to be a lot of shootouts for the teams playing in this division. I'm generally overweight every team in this division. I think it's a spot to attack from a scheduling perspective. And they're all warm weather or indoors too.
That makes sense. And last thing I'll say on Downs, you pointed this out, Jacob, but this is in PPR scoring, weeks 1 through 8 last year. So prior to his injury, Downs was averaging 12.5 PPR points per game. Really strong for a rookie. Couple, I think he had a 24-point game in there, some big games. Then after his injury, weeks 9 to 18, was down at just 6.3 PPR points per game. So if you do put a lot of weight into that injury being a huge factor, you can definitely paint a really rosy picture for a year two breakout for Downs. Even with factoring in like the post-injury stats, I still sort of have Downs like yards per out run, targets per out run, sort of grading out as like a 70th percentile rookie season based on historical data. So again, still including sort of the bad data, it still looks solid for Downs. So I definitely do see just like the bet on talent, not over predicting how this is going to shake out with Mitchell and so on there.
Yeah, I think he's slightly underpriced is like just kind of like what we would expect him to do. So I think you're getting any kind of breakout upside for free.
Yeah. Like, yeah. Let's have the Justin Fields debate. This has been a heated
What's
debate.
the debate? Wait, how's the debate? We're all how could you possibly be anti-Fields in the 18th
Oh,
round?
let him cook. Let him cook.
Let me cook. You haven't seen Russell Wilson versus Justin Fields by the numbers yet, buddy. Get ready to learn being worse than Russell Wilson in basically everything.
We all know he's worse. We all know he's worse. We don't care.
I don't think he's worse.
Here's the thing. I do not have any issue where Justin Fields is now going 207 ADP. I have been mixing him in as an 18th round third quarterback, especially if I have Fry, Muther, Pickens. Pat just had a stroke back there, but I don't know. Okay,
Someone flip that. We need that as a gift.
The 2x market exposure. I just don't want to get to the end of the season and be like, I lost because I had 2x, 3x the field of a backup quarterback. Like, I think I'm better at best ball that I don't need to be taking that big of a risk. You just look at the passing numbers last year.
I was that good. I'm not that good.
Yeah, maybe.
Congrats on being that good, man. We're all taking Fields.
I don't know, man. Like, why are we so confident that Fields is gonna overtake Russ? Like, I agree, it has a decent chance of happening. If it happens, it's gonna be fun.
Russ's play.
Yeah, but like, which of these passing stats? Like, I don't know, man. Like Russ.
Let me put it to you a different way. It's not about who's better. It's about who's last. If Justin Fields was a week one starter, right, I would bet on Russell Wilson to be playing in the fantasy playoffs. Justin Fields is more likely to be playing in the fantasy playoffs because Russell Wilson is the week one starter. Like, I just think neither of these guys are good enough for a coach to watch them play 13 games and want them to play a 14th game. That's my perspective on it. Like, I think Fields sucks too, but I think he has the benefit of the unknown. And I think that when you watch Russell Wilson play this year, you will yearn for the unknown.
Here's the other thing I think is important. The Steelers they're like the Saints. You know, this is a team that's refusing to go into any kind of rebuild. We will be relevant. We will somehow still be slightly relevant. That is their goal. And they don't have a path to any kind. They already tried the Kenny Pickett thing. You know, like they don't have a path to quarterback play in the future at all. I mean, he's 35 now. He's about to be a 36-year-old who just got benched. Right? He's not the future. What you could get with Fields, especially after they got him completely for free, you could get Fields on some super team-friendly, like, let's try him out for a year starter if he looks okay at the end of the season. And I think you almost have a duty, unless Russell Wilson plays really well and surprises everybody, you almost have a duty to see if that is a possibility if you're Mike Tomlin, who just got extended. Like, this whole style of team is not going anywhere. Like, they need to know if Fields can be the dude who can get them the 7th seed in 2025.
I also want to address TGHH30 exclamation marks comment, because this has been the constant pushback that I've gotten when I do Fields propaganda, which is, what if the Steelers are about to make the playoffs? They're always on the playoff bubble. Every year that they have not started Ben Roethlisberger, they change quarterbacks and are on the playoff bubble. Like, they started Mason Rudolph, and then they went to Hodges, and then they went back to Rudolph. They started Trubisky, and then they went to Pickett. They started Pickett, and then they went to Trubisky, and then they went to Rudolph. Like, going 9-8 with multiple starting quarterbacks is what they do. They do it every single year that they have bad quarterback play. This is a team that does exactly that. So I think that's totally in the cards.
Arthur Smith also kept changing his quarterback.
Yeah, but I think the point, like, I agree with you. Like, I'd be surprised if we don't see Fields at all this season. But again, like, what happened with the Falcons last year with Arthur Smith? They bench Desmond Ridder. They see Heineke for a couple games. He looks even worse than Ridder, and they go back to Ridder. Like, and again, you mentioned the Trubisky and was it Trubisky and Rudolph example where they flip-flopped them? I forget. Anyways, like, I just think that just because he's like second in line, there's no guarantee they switch to Justin Fields in week 9, and he's had so many disastrous games.
For me in the playoffs, they gotta
don't put him in week 9. That's a disaster for us.
We gotta
exactly. That's what I'm saying.
We gotta the hook for like week 12, week 13.
Yeah, this is pure third quarter. Look, but what you do is you've got like Tua and Derek Carr, okay, and you're like, it'll be really sick. A playoff spike week from Justin Fields. Let's tack that on. You're just going. You want them to change late in the season to.
I get it. And I think that's like
rush version of that is you do Deshaun Watson. Once he's no longer interested in playing football, Justin Fields comes in, and you just have
week 1. Is that week 1?
Play QB8 in points per game all year long.
I win my bet with Sam. He starts week 1.
You're not winning that bet.
Sam, how much do you love Mark Cabley at The Athletic? This dude, every day, he's like, Russ, he's so locked in. He's the quarterback 1 for all time. 2028, he's going to be the quarterback 1. you just gobble up his posts every day.
Yeah, I got notifications on for that guy. He's the best. But, yeah, like, I don't know, man. Like, I agree. There's specific cases. I probably want Fields like on 4% of my teams. I just don't think there's like 20%, 18% of my teams where I'm like, what I need right now is a backup quarterback. Like, there's plenty of starting quarterbacks available. I don't need to take the backup one. Like,
well, look, I put him in the queue next to Bo Nick, right? Because I set up Broncos one way or another very easily. I had a draft today where I had Jalen Warren, obviously, and I had Javonte Williams and Jamar Chase as a bring back on the Broncos. So I put Bo Nix in the queue and Justin Fields in the queue. And I was like, you guys decide who I get. But you take Nix first. He's starting all season. Like, so, to your point, it is. But
see, I don't. I will take Fields before.
Okay.
Nix.
Okay. Like, I'm taking Nix. I think Nix is a good pick.
Well, it kind of depends. Like the way I usually take Fields is if I've gotten sniped on whatever late quarterback I've set up the stack of. And so now I don't have a very good stack. And I'm like, well, I don't need to stack Fields because I'm just playing for him to run anyway. So I don't care if I have any Steelers or not, frankly, with Justin Fields. So, like, if I have set up, like, I have Javonte and I have Sutton and I have, like, then I'm for sure taking Nix. But there's been plenty of times.
I didn't have any receivers. It was just Javonte and Chase bring back.
But there's been plenty of times, and, oh, man, Andrew is spoiling my take for later in the show. But there's been plenty of times where, like, I just don't really have a very convincing stack set up. And I'm like, screw it. Like, this is going to be my Fields team. And Sam, I'm going to push back on this exposure thing. This is like a universal take, not just the Fields, but like the idea of a 4% exposure is like fake comfort. Like we have a 1 in 8 chance in a vacuum of making the finals in Best Ball Mania if you draft 150 teams. So like the idea of like, I have my 4% exposure blanket to like rock me to sleep at night. It's like when you get to week 17, you don't. You either like have a player or you don't have that player. Like that 4%.
Pete, we need 4% exposure blankets in the merch store. We got to get 4%.
Like I just think
I'm fine without the backup quarterback. Yeah. No, I get what you're saying.
I think of it as when I get to week 15 or week 16 or week 17 and I've advanced some teams and I go into my underdog app and I'm looking and I'm seeing like, who do I want to see on teams? Like, if Justin Fields is starting, I'm like, oh, man, I hope I have a lot of Fields teams because I have the QB7 in projected points this week, and I got him for absolute free.
Yeah. I just think he's, like, a player for a very specific type of build, in my opinion, and not, like, someone I want on 20% of my teams. But clearly we disagree on that. I don't know. I still think our brains are just broken by Justin Fields a little bit, and I get he's an 18th round pick, but
not your brain. Your brain's not broken a little.
My brain is not broken.
Strong the whole time.
It's completely completely held strong. I don't know, man. Like, again, why is Justin Fields like from a game theory perspective? Does it make sense that there's one backup quarterback that gets drafted in best ball, and like literally the other 31 get drafted 0%
But
of
you
the
would,
time.
I mean,
He's the only one that is projectably a top 10 scoring quarterback if he
wasn't Sam Howell a top 12 quarterback when he
no,
played
come on, this
last
is different.
year?
No,
This
okay,
is
but
different.
not projectably going into the season. If Russell, how about this? I'll put it this way: if Russell Wilson, if all 32 NFL quarterbacks, like the purge comes out and it's purge NFL quarterbacks, all 32 quarterbacks have been vanquished. Like what is the ADP of their backups? Like Fields is QB1 by
by
miles.
a mile. He's like the only one going in like the top 10 rounds.
Like if Russell Wilson was to tear an ACL tomorrow, what's Justin Fields' ADP? Like it's the 6th round, right? 7th round.
I mean, Joe Flacco's a 4th round pick in this universe. Let's be honest.
Yeah, fair. Justin Fields would be
probably an 8th round pick.
Probably an 8th round pick. Yeah,
like behind Kyler Murray.
Yeah, he would be an 8th round pick.
Yeah. So again, also, like if you're going to draft him, now's a good time, right? We got 4 months for a summer injury. I know that sounds like a mean thing to say, but like it could happen.
Yeah. Again, I'm doing the Davis thing where I'm not 100% sure this is true, but I'm pretty sure Sam Howell points per game last year just outpointed Justin Fields. And the team traded more to get him, and he has better weapons on his offense.
You know, Sam, the way best ball works is that when the guys score a lot of points, that hits your lineup, and when they don't score a lot of points, it doesn't hit your lineup. So the single week ceiling that Justin Fields provides, and you know his total points last year were hurt by him going out halfway through, I believe, the Vikings game, or not even halfway. It was pretty early on. So it's like, yeah, he's boom bust. He's gonna not do. I mean, the funniest thing that is gonna. This is just what's gonna happen now. Is he's gonna start week 17 and do shit. He's just gonna be horrible.
Yeah,
he's gonna start and do absolutely nothing, and then we're all gonna go back to our corners. We were right. He started, and why do you suck? It doesn't matter.
I also think it's worth noting that Geno Smith is good and Russ is bad. Like I'm against this. Like I understand that Geno has downside risk where if I think the team fails systemically, that they're going to want to get a look at the young guy. But I don't think there's really that much of a basis that we would expect Geno Smith to play himself out of the job. Like he was perfectly average quarterback last year. I think he's actually very underrated from a skill level perspective. Like his success rates and his EPA, if you just split it by when pressured and when not pressured, were both strong. What really was influencing kind of the mediocrity of his year was that he was pressured at a disproportionate rate, and particularly on third downs, which stunted a lot of their drives. I think in a vacuum, he's actually like a really strong regression candidate. I'm not drafting that much of him because I think there's still possibility that he just plays worse than last year, or the team fails systemically and you get into Howell stuff. But I don't think we should expect him to just play himself off the field, whereas I do expect Russ to play himself off the field.
Yeah.
That's probably the biggest thing. Or do you believe in Russ more? Because I know, the stats here, comparing the two, but you don't believe in Fields. So like, do you believe in the Russ part? Is that a part of the disconnect? Because like, I think Russ is like washed. Like he was bad 2 years ago. He was bad under Sean Payton. A lot of the good stuff came in garbage time. And then you deal with him like, we know what this dude's personality is. Like, it's not going to wear well over the course of a season where you're not, unless he's doing great. Like there is a scenario where he plays way better than I'm expecting, and it's lights out for the field stuff because if he can get them to the 7th seed, they'll be happy with that. But I don't know. Do you think that Russ just like has more in the tank than I do?
I think Russ is like the 20th to 26th best NFL quarterback, and I think Justin Fields is in the 30+ range. And again, I've said this before. Russell Wilson's benching last year was not performance based. It was contract based. He was not playing bad enough to get benched for Jarrett Stidham, except they didn't want to pay the injury guarantees. And I just think, again, like we're assigning probabilities. I'm not a huge Russ believer by any means, but he's going into the season as the starter. Without, if we turn injuries off for a second, I would say his odds of being the starter down the stretch are like 60-70%. And that just puts Fields' odds of starting down the stretch like pretty low for me, to the point where I don't want to make a huge. Again, you're only taking like 2 or 3 quarterbacks on every team. I just think it's like unnecessary dead roster spot risk when I can take Maye, I can take Bo Nix, I can take all these
Yeah.
guys that have much higher odds of starting games.
Fair enough.
Having stacks in your lineup in weeks 15, 16, and 17, like the data has showed, that's so important. It just seems to me like a little bit of fancy play syndrome to go all in on Fields.
Well, yeah, sure. I don't think anyone should go all in on Fields. I just think when Maye is gone and Nix is gone and I need a quarterback 3, I think Fields is totally fine. Like, I would much rather take Fields as my quarterback 3 than Daniel Jones, right? Because someone's asked me, do you ever take Daniel Jones? I will occasionally take Daniel Jones. It is possible that the Giants make the
playoffs. 5
playoffs.
neighbors, I'll take him or something.
Yeah. He is draftable in a pinch. But if I'd rather have Daniel Jones as my quarterback 2 than Justin Fields. But if I need a quarterback 3 in a pretty boring, the Derek Carr's in there kind of quarterback room, I want that late season upside. Like, he is back weighted at the very least. It's very much back weighted. You don't have to worry about him getting. Well, you do have to worry about him getting benched to some degree, but not as much as a guy like Jones.
Yeah. No, this was. I was completely out on Fields, and I have been mixing him in. I do think. I don't know. I think the truth is maybe somewhere in the middle of where we're at. I think in certain builds, it totally makes sense to take Fields. So I totally hear you guys' point. Let's move on to talking about Bowers. He was on the thumbnail of this video after all. Jacob actually psyoped me into becoming a Bowers guy because I think on a podcast with Pat, he
psyoped all of us.
He accused me of rooting for Dallas Goedert screen passes in week 17, and I actually
what a stray. What is this just hanging out?
Yeah, the funny part was I was like, oh yeah, he's making some really good points with Bowers. Like, I think I'm gonna start clicking him, and then you guys just started slandering me out of nowhere.
Just hanging out, catching Dallas Goedert screen pass strays. I mean,
yeah, but anyways, Jacob,
let me guess.
That was tough but fair.
Let me guess.
It was tough, but
Sam, not that into Brock Bowers, and said something about him being a screen merchant.
No, it's the opposite. Actually, it's the opposite, and it's pretty similar.
Hey, Sam, you've got a brand.
Davis, it's that I was unaware of Sam's actual take on Brock Bowers, was podcasting with Pat, talking about how much I like Brock Bowers, and then made a joke that Sam probably preferred screen merchant Dallas Goedert and would hate my take. And it turns out that scared him enough into now being into Brock Bowers.
If you're
it
drafting
scared me into
Dallas,
being on Bowers.
If you're drafting Dallas Goedert over Brock Bowers, what are you realistically hoping happens this season?
Yeah, I'm not doing that.
I'm not doing it either.
I was sort of ambivalent on Bowers for a while, and it's a tough pocket of the draft because there's so many good.
This is where I was.
So many good quarterbacks and running backs there, and I don't always need a tight end there. But I'm starting to just take him over Ferguson and Njoku because I just want to have a lot of Brock Bowers, I think.
The best argument for like
Ferguson, so that's fine.
What about Ferguson?
Well, he just doesn't exist to me. So I don't.
So he is like weirdly polarizing. Or I think
I have
Ferguson's
a whole
like
article with like 1,000 words on Jake Ferguson that's going to be coming out. In the next
please.
Days that actually quotes you and
how many times is Gary Barnage
Ferguson
referenced?
All right. Well, I'll wait for the post because I'm like super. I don't understand. Like, he seems like totally fine. He's a totally fine.
I like to talk about Ferguson with you because he has become very weirdly polarizing, and like I feel like you look at the list, like we agree on like 95% of players. So I'm happy that there's something I don't agree with you on. I think with Ferguson, it's just the case of like this is a player that I think like we probably all agree is like not that good, right? Like his targets per route is unimpressive. He's not athletic. He doesn't have an impressive college pedigree. He doesn't have impressive college production. Like there's no indicator that suggests this is a talent-based bet. It's an environment-based bet mostly. It's a bet on routes. It's a bet on the overall pass volume of the team and hopefully that flowing into touchdowns. And I think my guess, like from what I've heard from folks and from you, is that the idea is like probably a small win over the course of a year, and the hope is that it's a big win in a playoff week. Is that kind of the thesis?
That's the thesis, yeah.
And I guess my pushback is, go for it, Sam.
I was just gonna say, like, the other thesis for me is like you look at Dalton Kincaid's rookie year stat line and Jake Ferguson's stats last year, and they're like almost indistinguishable. And I get Kincaid obviously has the draft capital. It was Ferguson's second year versus Kincaid's first. There were some differences, but I don't know. I guess I'm not totally ruling out that Ferguson could be something more as a player, like 20% targets per route run if you include the playoffs, 1.5 yards per route run in his second year. I don't know. I'm not totally ruling out that there's something there, and it's a just completely wide open depth chart. So I'm definitely doing a bit of the projectable volume of who else is going to be there catching passes thing, but I'm like maybe keeping my like eyes open to the possibility that there's some like ceiling in his talent there.
That's how I feel. I mean, his numbers aren't that bad. Like they're not great, but like this is a profile that's not like it's not as good, but it's like reminds me a little of TJ Hawkinson's, you know, before he broke out. Like it's like a profile I've heard some pretty bullish things about Cole Kmet when his numbers looked like this.
Not
you know,
for me.
he's okay, fair enough. But he's like he looks like a totally fine tight end starter who is locked into routes. Like it's super locked in. He's got locked in around the goal line as well. The wide receiver
Schoonmaker, bro.
Yeah. Okay. I'm willing to bet against that. Brandon Cooks looked pretty weak last year. They don't have a wide receiver 3. So yeah, it is mostly like a situational bet, but like the bet on talent is essentially he's good enough. Like it's not like I'm like, hey, this dude's like kind of shitty, but no one else is here. Like I think he's pretty solid, and CeeDee Lamb is there, and Dak is there, and then no one else is there.
But we've seen tight ends trick us in this way before. And like, I'm not even going to go back to Barnage because he was frankly too good for the comparison in that year. But like, we just did this 2 years ago with Dalton Schultz in this offense where he was like good out of nowhere. And then we drafted him in like
he got hurt.
7. And then he wasn't good the next year.
No, he got hurt.
Well, he got hurt for portions of it. He was also just not very good when he did play.
Didn't he tear his ACL?
No, I think that was Blake Jarwin.
Oh, you're right. No, it literally was. That's how replacement.
Never forget the Blake Jarwin, Dalton Schultz wars.
This is the year
Schultz won the war when he was cheap, kind of like Ferguson. Like that was a year where we didn't know who the Cowboys tight end was going to be. Is it going to be Jarwin? Is it going to be Schultz? Okay, it was Schultz, and then he hit, and then the next year he was expensive, and then he failed, and then he leaves, and then we did the same thing where it was like, who's the Cowboys tight end going to be? It's going to be Ferguson.
He didn't really.
And then
he didn't really fail.
That's. I mean, I think he failed. I don't have the stats right up in front of me, but I don't recall.
He had a perfectly
impressive year.
In 2022, he had 11 PPR points per game. He had spike weeks of 29 and 25 PPR points.
Sounds fine. Like again, you're correlating him mostly with Dak, but
doesn't seem like the worst 7th round pick.
That seems fine to me.
Yeah, I guess I want the bigger, like with how tight end is priced this year. Like, I'm just a lot more interested in swinging for a more sustained bet. Like, I don't really buy as much, and I'll go into this with the specifics in the article. Like, I don't really want to be betting on, like, oh, this guy who's kind of an okay pick is just going to be great 1 week. Like, it's possible that could happen. You know, like if the wild card week was in week 17, you know, that would have happened. But I'd rather just bet on, like, again, it's 18 chances to make a season-long differentiating play. And I don't see Ferguson as likely to be that. There's a thread by David Gautieri that I'll retweet after this, and I put it embedded into the article, where he goes through, like, top 12 dynasty tight ends and all these signifiers, and it's a mix of NFL production, collegiate stats, and athleticism metrics. And, like, every single tweet in the chain is just like, oh, yeah, these tight ends all have this in common, except for Jake Ferguson. These tight ends all have this in common, except for Jake Ferguson. Like, it feels Schultzy. It feels Logan Thomas-y. Like, it's just I don't see the appeal where we're just hoping.
You have to grant the conceit that these guys do get the volume sometimes. That, like, occasionally the market will be right about this, and that he might Evan Ingram it. Where it's like, it's not even impressive.
That's what it feels like more to me. It's more Evan Ingram.
Like a first-round pick with a history of target earning.
On his second contract
elite
after like 4
athleticism.
shitty years, though.
Yeah,
like,
he was dead. He was dead when he was the Jaguar.
I mean, he was like my highest drafted tight end that year because he was an actual pedigree guy who had like reason for us to think he was good, and he always earned targets with the Giants, even though he wasn't efficient and he was always hurt.
But we know tight end is a position where pedigree matters the least of like almost any position. And we just had a dude in his second season come in and immediately establish himself as like an every route tight end, which are pretty rare. And he's on the Cowboys doing that, where they don't really have that great of a secondary option. And so, like, I don't know, he doesn't get any. He came in, all of his numbers are like totally fine for tight end across the board. Like nothing like where you're like, oh, that's a little, they're maybe not great, but like it's his second season as a starter. He doesn't get any upside. We talk about breakout upside all the time for guys in their second year. He's in his second year as a starter and a third year tight end. I think there could be a little bit more meat on the bone here for what that's like not really why I'm making the bet. I'm making the bet mostly because I have Dak and I'm like, those touchdowns to Ferguson would be pretty sweet. But I think it's like not really that baked in. We're not really expecting him to take a step forward, but it's not impossible that he does.
So last year, I don't have the, let's see, let's raise the custom targets here so I'm not spreading bad faith information. So last year, 1.46 yards per route run, that ranks 14th among tight ends with minimum 50 targets. His targets per route run comes in, let me just do the quick math here.
Don't leave out the playoff game.
Yeah, you got to count that playoff game.
All right, we count.
That's our entire argument.
We're doing.
We're counting the playoff game. You know how playoff
right.
games are like the most important games to the team itself. We should probably count it for.
All right,
fantasy.
you want the playoff game counted in?
Yeah,
sure,
I do.
Counted in the playoff game. Why did he run that playoff game? Probably like 83 routes anyway.
51
okay,
routes.
so that bumps his yards per route run by 0.03. So congrats, we got your playoff game in. We got
pretty good.
Let's see here.
0.03. It's nice. That's Quentin Johnson's yards per route run we get to tack on.
19% targets per run. Like, it's fine. You know, people are.
Yeah, that's what JSN had last year.
Yeah, I don't draft his ass either. Like, again, it's just like it's a 4.81 tight end who didn't do anything in college, and then he gets thrust into this role. He succeeds because he's cheap and because of a role, which happens at tight end.
What I would say about thrust into the role, by the way, is that he started with route participation numbers in like the 60-70% range, and they crept up steadily throughout the course of the season. This dude's a good blocker, and he's a cromulent receiver in an offense that could really use a secondary receiver. So I don't think he got thrust into anything. I think there was an opening, and he took it. I like seeing that.
Took it with 1.49 yards per route run.
He took it, dude. He runs all the routes and he plays all the snaps and he blocks
does
well.
Run all the routes.
Yeah, he does.
I don't know.
He took the job.
I don't get it. I just think we have 18 chances to make talent-based bets. I don't see him as one, but we'll agree to disagree and we'll see how it works out.
He's perfectly cromulent tight end.
Yeah. I don't think you want to be like building your strategy around him, but he's fine.
Like, I can get perfectly cromulent tight end with Javon Johnson.
I mean, his numbers are quite a bit better than Henry. I know Henry's, we make excuses, which we should make, but like his numbers are like a lot better than him.
Also, like the per route numbers in Dallas's offense, you got to multiply those by like 1.5 because they're going to run the most routes, like throw the most passes in the league. And
that's why it's a little Hawkinson-y to me. Like his per route stuff was never that great. His per route stuff was never that great. And then it's like,
last year, we couldn't draft a Dallas player, I was told, because McCarthy was a boomer and he was going to tank their whole offense. And then, like, do we have faith in the Dallas Cowboys offense now? Because I don't see any infrastructure.
I think Dak.
I have faith in them throwing a shit ton. I mean, Dak's not going to take any sacks, and what are they going to do? Hand off the ball to Zeke and Rico Dowdle? Like,
I think that's the plan. But part of the deal last year was not just that it was
that
volume,
can't be the
they were good. Like last year, they were actually good at offense, which I think might not happen again this year because they have one good player in their skill position group and they have a good quarterback. Both of them played the best season of their lives last year. We'll see if they can replicate that. We'll see if they can stay healthy again, both for 17 games. I don't see this as being an offense that has counter punches. Like if a defense is able to adjust to what they want to do, I don't see them having solves. Like I just think it's a fragile situation. I understand the projection-based bet. I just have other guys that I want to click. And I'm perfectly fine sitting it out if it hits his like projectable median, which I think is a small win. And I think that there's fragility where I could be happy that I faded. So overall, But
Yeah.
we haven't even talked about Bowers. We just talked about Ferguson. So I feel bad for derailing this.
The thing I want to say about Ferguson, like in comparison to the guys, because you talk about yards per out run, and some of these guys were in bad situations that you get down into the late rounds at tight end. So yards per out run's not going to tell the whole story. But like, if you look at like open score and we get down into the guys going in the late rounds, like Cole Kmet was tight end 27 in open score. Noah Fant was tight end 34. Dallas Goedert was actually tight end 37. Jonnu Smith, tight end 39. Hunter Henry, tight end 40.
Number one in screen score. So
yeah, Tyler Conklin, tight end 43. Mike Gesicki, dead last, tight end 44. Jake Ferguson was tight end 17. He had a really solid 61 overall score, which was tied for tight end 4 with Travis Kelce behind George Kittle, Mark Andrews, and Trey McBride. Like, he played pretty well last year, and we're betting on when you say like we're making. When we take Cade Otton, we're eliminating a chance to make a talent-based bet. I agree. Cade Otton was tight end 38 in this metric. He's not a talent-based bet at all. He's just a bet on the routes. Ferguson played pretty well for a guy in his first year, and his routes and playing time crept up over the course of the season. And he is in a really strong offense, so like the bar is a little bit lower for what I need if he takes another step forward as a player. I think he can take another step forward as a player, given what he showed essentially as a rookie. A fantasy rookie, let's say. So that's why I just would distinguish him from some of these other guys where we're truly just betting on them being out there.
Yeah, I mean, he had seven games of 20% plus target share as effectively a rookie. I mean, I know it's his second year, but again, first year, like really playing. It doesn't seem.
The chat is so horny for Brock Bowers talk. Can we please give it to them? They are just absolutely begging.
Let's service the chat.
If you were blind and you could only watch football via the dots, so all you had information was Brock Bowers' statistics, his workout numbers, and you didn't even know what a tight end was. You just watched via the dots. I mean, this dude would be going ahead of Brian Thomas. This dude would be going
as he should be.
He'd be going right about where Jacob's got him ranked, like him and Roma Dunze, like right now.
I have him too low, honestly. I mean, behind these other rookie receivers, I don't know what I'm doing. But he's like clearly the third most, or at least the fourth most talented pass catcher in the draft. Like, comes in 3.01. 2.37, 2.65 yards per route run in 3 college seasons. If he switched his position to WR, we would be talking about him as like, oh, is it Bowers or is it a Dunze for third best wide receiver in the class? Absolutely elite after the catch. Good blocker. Plays the tight end position the way that we want it played. I don't really understand why we're now in an environment that is correctly determined that, okay, we want to be betting on youth. We want to be betting on talent-based bets. And then this absolutely, like, probably for once in our lives, proper use of the word generational prospect gets drafted in the first round to a team with like one really good wide receiver. And we're like, I don't know, man. Like, they're busting a tight end that the previous regime drafted. Like, we can't take him. We've got to avoid. Like, there's no one is arguing against that I've seen that he's an absolutely phenomenal prospect. The situation is not great, but it seems pretty darn surmountable to me. And in the context of this environment, it's just utter nonsense to me where he's going. I just view this as a chance to draft a player by like several rounds, potentially the latest that he'll ever go. And I can't imagine missing the boat on this opportunity.
I think for guys like us, this doesn't maybe apply to everyone listening, but like, we know we're going to be drafting in 2025 and 2026 and 2027. And we're going to have to pay like a 5th round pick. This is when Jacob made the case on my pod with him, I was like, yeah, what am I doing? I'm going to get a chance to draft this guy, like pick 100, and then I'm going to have to pay a 3rd round pick like for the rest of his career. Like, no, I'm not going to not take him at this price.
One thing that's
just
go ahead,
easy.
Davis.
It's just so it's like Jacob's case is 100% correct, which is just like you don't need to mid curve it. It's just Brock Bowers go burr.
Brock Bowers go burr.
Yeah, I really hope he doesn't rise in ADP because
He's gonna.
Okay, I'm workshopping like what's probably a pretty bad take, but hear me out for a second. You know how historically it's always been like the low end tight end ones are always like such bad bets. Like you got to grab like one of the top 5 tight ends or wait till like, tight end 50 and grab Hunter Henry. This year, I think like tight end 7 through 12, I think are just as good as the so-called elite tight ends going ahead. Not all
tight
of them.
end is actually deep this year, Sam.
This is what I'm saying. But I think we've like moved past the time where it's like Rob Gronkowski and everyone else, and then Travis Kelce and everyone else. Like last year, we saw tight end scoring. Like there's 12 guys that are around 8 to 11 fantasy points per game. Several guys that had massive spike weeks. Brock Bowers at tight end 11 versus Sam Laporta at tight end 1, like a 70 pick ADP gap. I don't know, man. Like I kind of think that I want to be playing in the George Kittle. I know, Jacob disagrees on Jake Ferguson, but I want to be playing in sort of like the lower end tight end ones. I'm definitely making exceptions for Andrews and Kelce and sort of the higher priced ones, but like, what's the functional difference between like Dalton Kincaid and Brock Bowers?
Well, Bowers
is much better.
Yeah,
Bowers
exactly. So
I mean, other than the Jake Ferguson disagreement, I think that we're mostly directionally aligned at the tight end position. Like I'm very into Andrews, maybe not quite as into Kelce, but still pretty into Kelce. Not very into Kincaid. I'm very into Kittle, very into Bowers. I'm probably a little bit more in Njoku interested maybe than you guys are, but
I like Njoku.
I struggle with Njoku.
Well, we have a different heuristic for evaluating that because Jacob is drafting Watson, and I don't think any of us are.
No, I'm drafting some. I draft some, and I do draft some and Joe. He's just not. I guess I don't know. He fell a little bit.
By the way, like I'm not even close to that, and I'm not trying
to. Okay, I'm glad 3x.
Probably like 2x. Let's change that to a 2x.
Yeah. Let's do. We've talked tight ends for an hour. Let's do the Deshaun Watson thing, I guess. I don't know. Like,
you have to.
Here's what I have one random.
He's a fine pick.
I have one random Deshaun Watson. Like,
well at cost.
Yeah. Everyone wants to throw out this like, he had 18 fantasy points per game last year, in his 6 starts. No one really wants to talk about his 5 starts from 2022 where he was pretty useless.
Have you done this for Fields? Can you do this for Fields?
No. We're not going back to that. But my point being is like just if you just average like Watson's like Cleveland stats, I don't get why like we can only look at 2023 and can't look at 2022. Like it's just meh to me. Like his overall averages across those 11 games. Like I think the guy just can't really pass that well anymore, and the vibes are just so bad. I just don't.
The vibes are so bad.
It's just like, what's the point? Like maybe you'll get a 20-point game at some point, but
that is such a good summary of how I feel about it. Like, sure, you really might get a marginal win where you draft him as the quarterback 22 and he finishes as the quarterback 10. But like literally, what is the point? Like what? Like the
point is you're getting a mobile. The point is you're getting. I don't want to do the Watson thing, but I'll do it. I mean, the point is you're getting a mobile quarterback with very cheap stacks in a spread Ken Dorsey offense, who's proven capable of top 5 fantasy upside in the past. At like
7 years ago?
Like his last full season playing in the NFL.
When was that?
Don't look at any of the details. Don't read the fine print.
When was his last full season playing?
No one knows.
For the record.
No one knows.
Might have been 2020, 2019, 1994.
2020, I believe.
Something in there. Like it doesn't. I guess like if you want to just apply like a broad heuristic to it, I don't know whether it's 10%, 30%, 50%, or 80%, but like pretty clearly some material percentage of his ADP, I think, is influenced by people not wanting to draft him because he's disgusting.
That definitely factors into it.
Apply that and say like, what is his actual true price? If we were being worse people, it's probably higher.
Right.
And so I'm just, I guess, willing to do that. And then sometimes I get asked about it on podcasts, and I try to get to the next segment quick. That's kind of where I'm at.
What I would say with Watson, one reason why like I would start to be a little uncomfortable if he did move up a lot, let's say in a world where, no one cared about who he is. I mean, he does seem, I guess, because everything's the same except we don't care. Like he seems to not be that into, I don't know. The vibes are terrible. Like I could, does he have as much late season job security in a sense as some of these other guys?
Take the crimes out of it. And the vibes are still pretty bad. The vibes are still
bad.
Like it's like he doesn't seem that into playing football. The team immediately. Joe Flacco is hucking the ball 90 yards down the field, and it's like a goddamn frat party on the sidelines. Like the vibes were the best it's ever been when 40-year-old Joe Flacco stepped in.
They couldn't bring him back because the vibes would have been too good, but for the wrong guy.
Here's the thing. I know we had this argument in Discord, and you guys disagreed with me, but if the Browns like come out of the gate this year and the offense is just atrocious, I think they're gonna give Jameis Winston a look. I don't think they're riding this Deshaun Watson sunk cost fallacy to zero. I think they just gave Stefanski an extension.
Well, they gotta come. They have to get him to agree to fake an injury.
Yeah, like I don't know, but there was just so much weird stuff last year where like the team was saying he's healthy enough to play, and Watson's camp was like, "Oh no, he's injured and isn't play." Like, I don't know, man. Like, I just
the vibes are not good. I acknowledge that the vibes are poor.
And the upside is he's averaging 16 points per game over his 11 games.
I wouldn't say that's the upside.
That's not the upside. Come on, that's not the upside. You're like using the downside to color the upside, which isn't.
Okay, the median projection is just like is the most mid thing ever.
Fine. I mean, like if he were to go ahead of Aaron Rodgers, no. If he were to go ahead of Matt Stafford, no, I'm not doing it. So it's more just like
I'm fine taking him ahead of those guys.
I mean, the vibes are much better.
Pretty fragile.
Hey, listen, if the vibes are better with Aaron Rodgers, the vibes are bad. That's where we're at.
I mean, if you're in Aaron Rodgers' camp, the vibes are probably pretty good. He's like, "What's up, brother, dude?" Like they're just taking mushrooms in the QB room.
Dude, think about how hard it is to be an NFL professional. Think about how much you have to put in, not just in terms of your body, but in terms of study, preparation, details, right? Damon Harris just had a podcast with Robert Mays where he talks about how much that stuff matters and how if you're going to succeed in the NFL, you have to put the work in. Now, on top of all of that, you have to sit there and nod when Aaron Rodgers talks to you about the most batshit crazy stuff just so he doesn't ice you out of the offense. It is absolutely brutal. It is unfair to put on his teammates.
Yeah. I just want to say
for Watson record too.
Go ahead. You go first, Jacob.
Sure. I don't know how much this should be read into because we're like splitting an even already disintegrated sample even more. But I will say it's worth noting, in my opinion at least, that we're talking about this very small sample of games, right? And we've already decided that because it's a more recent sample, because it's post incidents, that we're going to rely on this more than the Houston sample, which I think is totally reasonable. But I do worry that then when we look at that small sample, there's some level of directionality to this that I think was getting kind of positive before that injury. The first game he comes out, terrible weather. Burrow played, frankly, even worse than he did in that game. Does nothing. Monday night game gets a little bit better. And then his last two healthy starts, if you get rid of that Colts game when he clearly, people are saying it was a faked injury. Did you watch him throw in that Colts game? He couldn't throw 8 yards. I don't think that was fake. The last two healthy starts he had, the game against Tennessee, he was legitimately great. And the game against Baltimore, he was pretty darn good against a defense that basically nobody was good against. It felt like he was legitimately turning things around. He was scoring fantasy points. He was playing better. Then he ends up getting hurt. Obviously, people are going to assign, reasonably the worst kind of possible light of his injury ambiguity and all that stuff. And I get why, obviously, but I
even
do
the
think,
way that happened,
the last two healthy games were quite good football and quite good for fantasy.
It's weird. I think part of it that left a bad taste in my mouth was they were like, yeah, I think he'll be probably ready. And then it's like, I don't know. It's like it almost seemed like he wasn't talking to the team about like where he was at health wise. And so, and maybe that's because he just has a terrible relationship with the team and he was legitimately hurt. That's probably that's probably is what happened. But at the time I was like, what is going on? Like, this is not how injuries work in the NFL. Like, no one knows if he's healthy. What the hell? It's just, I don't know. I mean, if the relationship is completely broken down or is close to completely breaking down, it does not. Yeah, I don't know. I think he's fine. He's totally fine at cost. If he were to rise, I would love if he were to rise because then I just never take him.
This is such an example.
If you had a bad price, I would love him to.
Love him to have a bad price.
It's such an example of knowing the right thing to do is to build a strong position of this guy who like did look pretty good, runs a little bit. They get Jerry Jeudy, like he's got good pass catchers, and still not wanting to do it because it feels bad. One, because the dude stinks, and it feels bad because you're like, I just remember watching the Browns last year and it was just like horrible. And then Flacco came in and just like everything's better. Jeudy gets Amari Cooper has 1 billion points. David Njoku scoring 2 touchdowns a game. And it's just like, I don't know. If I lose because Jerry Jeudy and Deshaun Watson is what you need in Best Ball Mania 5, I can't cover all the combos. And that
anti-cabal, if that is what happens.
It's extreme. Yeah, the cabal is going to have a terrible year if Deshaun Watson is the quarterback 7.
I feel like the cabal is in on Deshaun.
Yeah, the cabal's quietly, very cabal,
like quietly in.
It's quietly, behind the scenes.
The call is coming from inside.
The
call is coming from
inside. I don't think the cabal's out on Watson. Yeah.
Last word on Watson. I get that you can maybe see some positivity in how he played last year, but just look at the overall numbers from last year. CPOE, EPA per play, PFF passing grade. It's still all pretty bad. I mean, 2022 was even worse. So again, I don't know. I'm not seeing like the turnaround in terms of who he is as a passer. I get his rushing.
Are you taking a lot of Amari Cooper then, Jacob?
Not a ton. And mostly just because of where he goes. Like I like Kirk more and I love Mark Andrews. So I'm clicking him.
So who are you stacking him with? Jeudy, Moore, or Njoku?
So Jeudy is the one that I do most often. Sorry to sacrilegious.
Sorry to me, bro. What are we doing?
And
Judy's perfectly I mean, like not perfectly in that he's a massive target, but it's fine. It's like Watson. I'm like, this seems fine.
Elijah Moore, I will take only on Watson teams, but on almost every Watson team because he's free.
Right.
And then in Njoku, I take sometimes, and I take Watson on most of those teams. I also just take a lot of the Miami guys, and like part of the deal with Watson is rushing upside. So I actually don't feel like super a need to like stack him with particular pass catchers. Like I could see him just getting there on rushing volume, and I could have like Waddle, Achane, Watson, and then just like tack on a cheap Elijah Moore and Deontay Foreman, and like I'm actually perfectly fine with that too.
Let's move on to something more positive, the players that Jacob hates. Starting here with...
This is going to be a lot easier to do.
Yeah. Khalil, Shakir. I think this is one... Maybe we have consensus here, right?
Zero.
I'm pretty out on this
good.
one.
People think he's good, but they're wrong. He's not.
Yeah. Anything else to say?
I mean, I take him some with Allen. He's a little overpriced for me. But
that's cheating though, because it's like if you have Josh Allen, you should take Khalil Shakir because that should boost his.
It's only cheating if I say past ADP. I'm not. I will take him ahead of ADP when I have.
Okay. Yeah, he's not going to get any volume. I mean, he was getting benched for Deontay Hardy and Trent Sherfield for stretches last year.
It's the Isaiah McKenzie play again.
I mean, he already had opportunity. He ran 393 routes last year.
He's been extremely efficient when he gets targeted. His targets per route run has just been really, really low. So
last year, 14%.
Yeah, 14% over his career as well.
Oh, that's on the,
Again, you look at the yards per route run, and you might think, oh, this guy has some offside, but I'm willing to bet against the low targets per route run, high yards per route run guys.
Well, especially when your quarterback is Josh Allen. Like Josh Allen's going to provide post-target efficiency for most players, I think.
We're about to get into a holy war, though. I just realized looking at this list. I can't wait.
Okay. Who do you like?
Jameson Williams. We talked about him last week. Let's move past that one.
Not good.
I wanted to talk through. Again.
Oh,
Why
I know.
Mike Williams 0? This one's a little odd to
No,
me.
because he stinks, dude. Jacob,
he's like,
do it.
Does he?
I mean,
stink?
I think he's okay. So the best case is that the 30-year-old wide receiver comes back healthy off of an injury that is typically, in most cases, a 2-year injury, especially at the wide receiver position. And then he's like if we just knew the ACL was not a problem, we would draft Mike Williams where the 7th round. So like, I think that's an unlikely outcome.
I think maybe a little higher.
Okay, maybe a little higher. I mean, like I would probably draft him around where like DeAndre Hopkins goes. So that's to me like the early 7th. And then I think that's an unlikely outcome. I think the more likely outcome is that he's just a complete dust ball post ACL and is like unplayable.
I've got an even better.
And I just see it as like
take.
a pretty, like I think he's just going to be Michael Gallup post ACL or Cortland Sutton first year post ACL. Like I think he's going to be totally useless. And then if he's not, I feel like I'm losing a little. But I just don't see like Mike Williams being the guy that I want to bet on being an ACL outlier. Like I'll bet on that when the talent is Breece Hall. I don't feel the need to do that for 30-year-old Mike Williams personally.
All right, close your eyes. Imagine in your head all the Aaron Rodgers deep throws you've ever seen. Have you ever seen that dude throw a purposeful contested jump ball, or is he always throwing it to someone who is wide open, either because Rodgers threw them wide open or because they got wide open? All of the guys that Rodgers succeeded with were not Mike Williams types. They were absolute technicians or guys who were crazy fast. Jordy Nelson. Maybe you could argue the James Jones crazy touchdown.
Yeah, I was gonna say
James Jones is kind of
that,
Mike
that would
Williams.
be the one. But I can't really think of aesthetics wise two players who do not.
He likes the tight end.
He likes
throwing the tight end.
So Mike Williams'
on
best
the
case scenario is he's Robert Tonyan. That best case scenario is he's Robert Tonyan. I'm out. You got to take a stand. You can't take 8% of everyone. I'm just taking 0 Mike Williams. Again, if Mike Williams is who beats me, that's who beats me.
But it's not Mike Williams who beat you. It's Mike Williams getting someone Rashee Rice to the playoffs, getting Rome Odunze to a late season breakout. Like,
right. But there's other guys that can do that. I can take.
I guess
aren't coming off ACL injuries. Like I can just take Sutton or Lockett or Samuel if I really need that.
He goes behind those guys, doesn't he? Doesn't he go behind all three?
By a bit.
Yeah, by like 10, 12 picks.
Sack
almost 20 picks now for Sutton.
Well, okay, so if I miss out on those guys, then I'll just draft Josh Downs.
All right, good. I will too.
Sack makes a good point, which is that if Mike Williams did start wearing a hoodie under his jersey, I'd be all in. That could convince me to go from 0 to 10% on Mike Williams.
That would look
Well, I don't like that aesthetic. That's why I didn't like Dylan Johnson as a prospect. That's why he wasn't drafted.
I think it's for a running back, it's bad, but for a wide receiver, somehow it's good.
I appreciate what Davis just said. This is the same thing that I'll say about Cooks. It's frankly the same thing that I could have said about Ferguson. It's the same thing that I feel about like Zach Moss, who's not on this list, but is probably spiritually on this list. Like, there's a lot of these players where someone tells me like, look, man, the projection is better than your ranking. I'm like, yeah, that is correct. And like, you are right. But I just, there's only so many chances to pick players. You already have enough countervailing forces in your life where you're trying to write the proper structure. You're trying to make sure your teams are correlated. You're trying to be mindful of cost. After you've already done this, it's like, I just only have so many guys that I can draft. There's so many that I want to draft as many times as possible. I'm not going to get that many teams into the finals. I want to have my dudes. I want to bet on myself being correct. My guys are the ones driving my teams to the finals, and that I have the guys I want around them with well-structured teams. So I just don't want to waste time drafting some of these players that I think personally profile not as very sustained season-long bets. And with Mike Williams in particular, I don't even think he's a high floor bet because of the ACL. So it's like I'm sacrificing ceiling and I'm sacrificing floor. Like if I want to draft a guy who's going to carry my Rashee Rice teams, like I want to draft a guy with 2 knees.
That's fair.
Yeah.
Non-derogatory.
Yeah, non-derogatory, that's fair. I do think you got to give some credit to how good Mike Williams has been over the past 2 years.
I will. I like Mike Williams. I've always been a pro Mike Williams
5
person
touchdowns the last 2 years. He's been
he
killing
was
it.
also playing the best. Again, it was just 100 routes, but he was playing the best ball of his career last year before he got hurt. Really played really well in both 2022 and 2021. So I think I see it a little bit different than you, Jacob. I understand the point, but I do think the injury stuff is like starting to get baked in at a 111 ADP. I mean, we're taking him next to guys like Khalil, Shakir, guys who really
also
not
the Jets
anything. So
just are not going to be a high volume offense. Like it's just going to be kind of like slow, and it's going to be much more like the last year of Rodgers in Green Bay than any of the fun years in Green Bay.
That's probably true, but like Lazard is probably getting cut even with his stupid deal. Like
invoking Alan Lazard is so funny.
Like it's just like I don't know. I mean, I guess I hate having to be the situation based argument guy, which Jacob keeps boxing me into. But like
Boomer Pat,
we're talking
about Mike Williams looks really good in Pat's projections. Congrats, Pat.
I guess like look, I've got plenty of my guys. Like I've got a lot of guys that I'm going to be taking 20+% on. A few guys I'm going to take 30+% on. We get down here and I'm like, hey, I need a receiver. I got out of structure slightly for Breece Hall to start, or Mark Andrews, or Travis Kelce, or whoever else, elite quarterback. I need a receiver now, and the elite quarterback was Allen, so I got a Mike Williams bring back. Could I do that? Okay, yeah, I can do that. Or whatever. I got Breece. I'm going to continue the bet on the Jets. Sure. So like he fits more like with that to me, where I don't see him as like a target, but I also don't have any real issues with just kind of mixing him in as part of like a broad portfolio around the players that I am taking big stands on.
I think that's fine. I think that's fair, if you will. I just am not mixing in players. Like there's no one I'm really mixing in. Like I'm just taking my players, and then anyone else that I mix in are like, if necessary, for a particular stack. So like I know I actually have Mike Williams as 0. I'm pulling a Davis. I'm lying. I've taken him one time where he fell like a full round behind ADP, and I had.
I wonder if I have any. Let's see.
That's not a Davis. You got to be at like 9% to make it a Davis.
That's true.
I do. I have one. What was $3 on underdog? Because I have one $3 Mike Williams team.
There you go. I just like, for me, it's a matter of like I have to take Mike Williams when Chase Brown, Tyjae Spears, sometimes Brian Robinson, like there's the quarterbacks I like there with Lawrence, with Tua, with Herbert, like those guys are still around. Or I can just take wide receivers I actually like better, straight up, in Judy, Wicks, Downs, Legette. When all those running backs are gone, that tier of quarterbacks are gone. So like if I am short on wide receiver, I just like eat it and I just live through that range as though I weren't, and then I just get my wide receivers later with those guys.
All right, now let's talk about something you're actually horribly wrong about. No one cares about Shaheed, like whatever. Everyone knows what Rashid Shaheed is. You are gonna eat it on being wrong on Hollywood Brown.
I mean,
no, he's 100% right on Hollywood.
No, he's not.
Hollywood any good at all? Are we sure?
Yeah, he's fine.
Is he?
He's sure?
Yeah, he's fine.
Are you sure about that?
There's a bunch of you know who else is fine? Rashid Shaheed. He's totally fine. He's like half the cost.
Well, these guys don't play for the team that's going to lead the NFL in points. And
I want to play a game. I designed a game today. We're going to play who has the highest yards per route run in 2023. And I'm going to name 2 players, and you're going to tell me who do you think has the higher yards per route run in 2023.
Hollywood was the worst.
Marquise Brown or Josh Reynolds, who had the higher yards per route run in 2023.
Josh Reynolds by a lot, I think.
God damn.
Marquise Brown or Michael Thomas.
Don't make Jacob mad. Don't make him mad.
I literally do not care about any of this, because the corollary is Hollywood Brown has been hurt and playing on these shitty teams for years. For the last 2 years, he's been hurt and been playing with shitty backup quarterbacks on shitty losing teams. He could have gotten more money in free agency. He clearly chose not to.
I certainly hope so. I certainly hope he could have got more money.
He clearly chose to come to Kansas City so that he can get a bunch of yards and go sign a bigger contract, probably with the Patriots. Sam, sorry, probably with the Patriots is probably going to be.
This is the Tobias meme. You sign a 1-year deal with the Chiefs. Has it worked for anyone? No. But
well, here's a good comparison. Juju Smith-Schuster, who was like beyond done, could not have been more done for the Chiefs in 2022, a year they were not particularly good. 78 receptions, 933 yards, and 3 touchdowns. I mean, if Hollywood gets 78 receptions and you've only got him in stacks at the 5th round cost, I mean,
to your point as well,
you're gonna hate it.
I just got, because I'm the Hollywood Bear on the leg up rankings, and they were like the Juju pick, because Juju had a couple good games. He ended up getting hurt that season with the concussion and everything, but he was actually quite a bit more expensive than Hollywood.
Like 36 more expensive,
right?
But and in a wide receiver landscape, probably like 30 wide receivers higher.
I believe he was the wide receiver 19, if my memory serves. It could have been a little bit lower than that, but
right. So that means he's like the 212 in these drafts.
He was way higher. He was around 4th pick, but he was in a wide receiver room with MVS, Hardman, Sky, Justin Watson. Like he was just vacuuming up defaulted targets. Like that's
what Rashee Rice did last year, and he turned out to be like a wide receiver too.
Yeah.
Well, okay, so Rashee Rice is still there, and we know that he can do that
theoretically.
Okay, well, if Rashee Rice, I'll have, like, if Rashee Rice is suspended for the whole season, then my portfolio is down bad, and
yeah, I mean, you're not alone.
Bad. But I'm working under the presumption that in the fantasy playoffs and several weeks before that, Rashee Rice is playing. And, I'm not exactly like the leader of the worthy hive, but I will fully acknowledge that he is a very viable and high upside prospect. Like, it's totally possible that the Chiefs just have 2 good young receivers and have Kelsey, and they don't need to funnel targets to their mediocre veteran wide receiver on a 1-year deal who they aren't at all invested in. Like, I don't know that this is such a clear bet. It's also not like Hollywood really runs a lot of gimme routes. Like, he's not going to be just vacuuming up slants. Like, he's a deep threat theoretically. That is, in theory, with the role that he's going to be playing. That's the role he's best at playing. That's what he's actually been efficient doing. Yeah, I don't know. It's just it's a tough sell for me on Hollywood. There's the 4 Chiefs bets. I think some of them hit. I like all 3 of the other.
That's the thing, is you just need to be making the Chiefs. I'm not even saying I'm writing for Hollywood, although, I mean, obviously I am writing for Hollywood. What I am writing for is you probably want to have 25% of all of the 3 wide receivers.
That's a lot.
No. I want Worthy and Rice. I want the guys who I believe in late season.
Well, I think Hollywood is, I just clearly think he's better than you guys. I mean, and I think that in particular, the decision to get him as opposed to some of these other, because imagine who they would have signed last year. They would have gone for the more possession style guys, right? The guys over the middle, the Smith-Schuster replacement. I think my opinion is that they decided this offseason, we flew too close to the sun, being a defense running short A-dot team. Like, we do not want to play that anymore. Like, it's just too high variance. We were down to the Bills at half in this divisional game. They want to push the ball deep, and Hollywood is going to come in week 1 and be ready to do that. Now, I like Worthy more. I have Worthy ahead in my rankings, but you could take both quite a bit.
It's hard to take both. If you want to take Worthy, you literally decide between the 2. And I have decided between the 2 the same way every time.
Well,
Xavier
if you take Worthy in the 4th round, sometimes you
there's other boring veterans who I actually like, who I'm sure are good. Like, I can just take Chris Godwin.
I want to hear your he's just fine, he projects well cases. I'm sick of making
I have several of them. I take Dante Johnson all the time. I take Chris Godwin all the time. I take Christian Kirk all the time.
Yeah, I like that one. I like that one. The Deontay one, I can't really get
I like Christian Kirk too, but it's just like I can close my eyes and I can see Hollywood Brown 3 receptions, 114 yards, 2 touchdowns in like week
When's
3
the last
against
time
the
he's
Raiders.
done that? Like you know what a
Long
Hollywood
time.
stat line has been for the last 2 years?
A long
Honestly,
time.
the last 3
He's
years.
been shitty.
Oh, 10 targets, 4 receptions, 51 yards, 0 touchdowns. Oh, re-aggravated his foot.
I need you to open your mind to Pat. I think we have become so warped watching Pat play with guys who are like XFL caliber wide receivers that like Rashee Rice was
I believe
like a shitty 5th-year guy at SMU and came in and looked like one of the best wide receivers in the NFL because of Pat.
Okay, but we also have proof of concept that Patrick Mahomes is both incredible and yet still cannot make bad wide receivers good. Like Sky Moore was not made good. Marcus Valdes-Scantling was not made good. Justin Watson was not made good. Like
keep going.
What if
Juju?
Crazy idea. Yeah, Juju was like doing the bare minimum. Like Juju got dragged along, and that's still better than several other guys were able to do, but is still not actually that good. The only guy in this whole period of post Tyreek Hill, or even during Tyreek Hill, look at Sammy Watkins. Like the only guy who's actually delivered in this realm of other Chiefs wide receivers, not named Tyreek Hill, is Rashee Rice. And maybe, crazy idea, he's good. He might be good, guys. Like,
I think you're right. I think he is.
I hope he is. I think
you are right. I have Worthy ahead of Hollywood, but I just. Well, one, also my prior is that Hollywood is good, and I've like thought that for like 6 years. So I'm just I'm not going to be Bayesian on that. And shouldn't
we be? There's a lot of chances we got to update our priors. His yards per route run fell off from a career high 1.85 to 1.61 with Baltimore. Gets traded 1.44 the year after. I know Murray got hurt 1.25.
Yeah, if I wanted to update my priors, I could.
He's coming off a 1.25 yards per route run. He's an undersized 27-year-old on a 1-year deal
37 foot injuries.
Yeah, and like we like Worthy, like especially late season, right? Like he's dealing with a lot of stuff at the end of the season. Rice and Worthy potentially both coming on, or Rice just being back, not even coming on. Like it's front loaded. Even if it hits, it's probably front loaded, and it's expensive. It's not. I know every wide receiver is getting priced up, but like. He strikes me as kind of belonging in this Sutton group, down much lower. Like, I think he's kind.
I agree. I agree with that.
But he doesn't. He doesn't play with Bo Nix. He doesn't play with Bo Nix.
And I think that the foot injuries are like a thing, not in the sense of like I'm trying to do the injury prone thing, but look at the history of some of these wide receivers who have had these midfoot issues, and they just become bad. Like Sammy Watkins was good. And then
Hakeem
this
Nicks.
line of injuries completely derailed his career.
Man.
Hakeem Nicks, Des Bryant.
Hakeem Nicks was compartment syndrome, wasn't it? Didn't he have like a crazy
and then foot stuff?
Bateman?
Yeah.
Rashad Bateman. Like it's just like it's not good, the stuff that he's been dealing with. And I think it can be right that like my previous prior on Hollywood Brown being good is correct. And he just might not be anymore. Like I think that is possible.
If I took Kadarius Toney in the 7th round, but then now waived Hollywood Brown in the 5th round, I don't think I could look myself in the mirror. And so,
let me take it back in time, and we cannot take Kadarius Toney in the 7th round last year together. That was
we tried.
that was the answer.
We tried.
I did a bad thing. I did a bad thing. Police. Like I'm turning myself in, and I won't do it again. I promise. Like I'm not going to do it again.
All right, we're at the 2-hour mark of the show. I did promise. Michael Dubner was generous enough to give away a That's Fair T-shirt, so we're gonna get that giveaway going now. If you type in hashtag That's Fair, no apostrophe, I'll put it in the chat now so everyone knows how to spell it. If you put that into the chat, you will be eligible for a That's Fair T-shirt. While we're waiting on people to type that in, let's get to the final segment of the show, favorite closing line values in underdog. So Jacob, I think you're probably familiar with how this works. We're just trying to predict the best percentage ADP risers from now until when BBM closes. in September. So, Jacob or Davis, if you guys have one ready, feel free. All right.
I've got one too, but Jacob can go first.
Audric Estime is going to be my pick. Benjamin Albright posted on Twitter last week that his expected week 1 workload split for the Denver Broncos is 45% snaps Javonte Williams, 40% snaps Audric Estime, 15% snaps Jaleel McLaughlin. If we start getting more and more Estime hype that backs that up, if we get the Samaje Perine cut that has been long rumored and long awaited, if we start getting preseason usage where it's like, oh, Jaleel is either not playing at all because he's like a sub package guy, or he's only coming in on third downs or something like that, and it's an Estime Javonte rotation, I think people get excited about that. He has a really strong advanced metrics profile from college. I'm still interested in clicking Javonte Williams, but the sentiment on him in the market is very poor. So I think like any bullish Estime news would be like attached to very quickly by the market. I could see us getting to a spot in late August where people are talking themselves into it as a full-blown split. And once it becomes clear that he is ahead of McLaughlin and that Perine's not on the team, he's a guy where I could see like a round 12, round 13 rise too. So that's going to be my pick.
I like that one.
That is pretty strong, although I think he stinks, so like that's kind of interesting. But why
do you like Braelon Allen and not like Audric Estime? They're both big. They're the same guy. One of them has like good college rushing metrics.
How old is Audric Estime?
Not 17.
There you go.
I
don't know why.
But he's not like an old man. He's not Ray Davis. Who you like?
You love Ray Davis.
Oh my God, guys!
I'm backing off. I'm backing off.
He is 20 years old.
Backing off on Ray Davis. Maybe I'll reconsider Estime. I will take Marshawn Lloyd as my guy. I think it's interesting that Jacobs is getting cheaper. The market is definitely realizing that there's going to be a committee here. I mean, every time LaFleur talks to the media, he's like, let me philosophically tell you why I prefer to use 2 running backs instead of 1. But Lloyd is not changing in price at all. He's been the running back 47 for like the entire, like since the pre-draft stuff. So, and I don't even really like Marshawn Lloyd as a prospect. I think he's like a perfectly cromulent, guy to get 9 carries and 3 targets a game or whatever. But I bet he kind of gets into that Chase Brown, Blake Corum zone.
Do we have who we've picked so far? And have I taken Kelsey yet?
You haven't taken Kelsey.
You have not. It's risky to take him when he's already a riser, though.
Well, I think he's got a lot.
DraftKings ADP.
His DraftKings ADP is at the 2-3 turn.
Yeah.
And I don't know. Maybe it's just because I'm in the poodle and stuff where everyone gets pushed down. That's not a receiver, but like Kelsey, it was today in Best Ball Mania. I got him at like the 407, 408.
Insane.
Just insane. So like, I don't know. I mean, maybe that's maybe I'm not getting the totally best price, but like this dude could rise a lot. And we talk about, stuff not being priced in that should be priced in. When Rashee Rice gets suspended, Travis Kelce's ADP will rise. It's stupid as hell, but it's going to happen. It makes no sense at all.
He's the tight end 1 on DraftKings too, right?
Yeah. Yeah, and I believe so, because he goes at the 2-3 turn. I don't think Laporta goes that high. So,
yeah. I'm gonna have to start taking more Kelsey. I think that's just like a leak that I haven't been hammering him, especially being as low on Hollywood as I am. And
25.7 ADP over on DraftKings.
That's probably closer to correct. I think we'd probably agree that like if Kelsey and Andrews were just going where Laporta was going, like it would make total sense, right? Because the only reason I think the Laporta pick sucks is because of the other tight end picks. Like I don't even think that the Laporta ADP in a vacuum is particularly egregious, especially now that it's fallen a little bit. It's just that like it's really hard to justify taking him given the other tight end prices, who I think are just straight up better picks than him.
In a different world, he would be a really good pick, and you would, in the 4th round, take Zay Flowers or Devontae Smith, or and then you come back in the 5th and get Christian Kirk, and we'd be loving 3rd round Sam Laporta as the tight end 3. But it's just It's like, as the tight end 1 with all the receivers getting snapped up, he's a tough click.
Yeah. I didn't do Elijah Mitchell last week, did I?
No, you did
That's a good
Ryan
one.
last week.
Good
Oh,
call.
I did P. Ryan. I'm going to do Elijah Mitchell. I don't really get his ADP being so late. He's my favorite. I need a 5th or 6th running back in the 18th round. He's still usually almost always available. The injury stuff is annoying with him. I get, he tweaks his hamstring in practice, and is out, and Jordan Mason's playing ahead of him, and that's frustrating. But I think the team still likes him a lot. We saw that with him his rookie year. Basically, anytime McCaffrey has been injured, they've tried to turn to Mitchell first over the past several seasons. So I think he's effectively like the same bet as, I don't know, Zach Charbonnet at pick 135, and you can get him at pick 200. So I think that ADP will go up to 150s once we get sort of confirmation he's the clear RB2 ahead of Isaac Guerendo.
I'll give you the same bet as Tyler Algier.
Same bit as Tyler Algier, yeah.
Yeah, but
Charbonnet is
for the
playing
purposes of
every
stealing his
passing
ADP,
down.
Charbonnet sounds cooler.
That's true.
It is
It's
funny,
wrong,
like
but it sounds cooler.
that's a big part of this show, man.
I don't think you're getting the concept of the show.
Wrong, but sounds cool. That's the whole point. It's funny, like when we go deep into draft season, and we're like preparing for the draft, and we get all up on all these rookies. Like, it's almost like our brains flip to where we think like the rookies are the veterans, and that like Elijah Mitchell in his 4th NFL season like has to displace Isaac Guerendo.
Yeah.
And
Like
it's
Mitchell's got to be out Guerendo. Yeah.
If I gave you guys plus 180 on Isaac Guerendo, never takes an NFL snap, like which side are you?
Oh, I
betting
take it at minus 110. I think truly.
You just changed the odds. You have to be minus 180, right? Or
No, I'm saying he said plus 180. I'm saying minus.
Oh,
giving
you say you would
plus
take
180.
it. I'm sorry.
I'm giving you
misunderstood.
plus 180 to bet
think-
on he never plays an NFL snap.
I think
so if you want to
Schrader-
bet on
I
he
think
does play an
Schrader-
NFL snap, I have a pretty reasonable vig. It's only gonna be minus 200 if you want to bet on he does.
I think Schrader beats him out. Also, Kamani Vidal. I mean, I tweeted this last week, and his agent tweeted at me and wasn't very happy about it. But the running back 50, maybe not ever playing an NFL snap.
Vidal's good. Vidal's good.
Someone tagged me, I believe, in the Spike Week Discord with this this point that I guess Harbaugh tried to recruit Isaiah Spiller to Michigan.
Oh
no.
God,
Come
no.
on.
Not the
Well,
Michigan.
he's a
not
very
not
highly
the,
regarded recruit.
Let me see
I
if I
mean,
can
I
find
was the
this.
time
real
that
quick.
Isaiah Spiller was like a 1st-round Devy pick. Like I remember that time.
I'm in on Vidal just because of the upside, but I would not be surprised at all if we get news that he's like RB4 behind Spiller in the preseason. Like it shouldn't be shocking.
It shouldn't.
It
be.
sucks.
Spiller
It
is,
sucks, but it shouldn't
like,
be shocking.
really bad.
No, Spiller's terrible. I know, but
Like
it's just
I don't know. I'm in on the Vidal thing.
I'm in on
Vidal
it
should
too.
find his way to get onto the game day active list. Like J.K. Dobbins is like, who was it? Hayden that had the tweet, or one of you guys? Somebody had the tweet that he essentially just got his moving expenses paid for. Like that was the guaranteed money in the contract.
that's a line I've used a couple
$50,000
times.
guaranteed.
Okay.
Yeah. Yeah, I've
All
called
right.
it as moving expensive.
Nice.
So I think we've given enough time for this. That's fair giveaway. Last chance now. I'm going to pull this up. Again, this is for a That's Fair t-shirt, and whoever wins this will sort out how to get that to you. But I'm going to draw it now.
That's fair.
Seems fair.
What a bummer that we're all too self-conscious to say it now because it's such a bit.
Oh my god.
Constantino.
This dude back-to-back main event champ.
Wow.
Yeah.
No way. Wow.
That's fair.
This cause,
That's
dude.
fair.
That's fair,
That's
man.
this is-
that's
and this
literally the opposite.
that
Of
he's had in 3 years is this.
rigged.
The influencer, that's
Rigged.
fair.
Hashtag that's not fair.
That's not fair.
Stop the steal. Call your local elector and tell them to stop the steal, bro. This is how a whole country gets
We
ratified.
gave a That's Fair t-shirt away in the most unfair way of all time.
Hayden just said his
I love this,
That's Fair
Hayden.
t-shirt stolen off his porch, so someone is walking around wearing it without the context of why.
That is so good.
Oh god,
man.
Man. All right. Well, congrats
Wow.
to Nick, I guess. If you really need a free t-shirt, reach out.
Dan Cases, that's fucked.
Oh, man.
Maybe we'll have better luck with the 4% comfort blanket. We need those in the merch store.
Yeah. But Nick, in all seriousness, Nick, reach out to me or
Storm the
Pete,
ship
and
chasing Discord.
Someone will.
I would
figure
buy
out how to
that
get
if you
to
guys get like a snuggie and then it just says 4% Justin Fields on the front.
I want that so bad.
With Sam's face, it's just like Sam like holding like a football, and it's just a football that says 4% Justin Fields on it on the snuggie.
Oh man.
Imagine only
let's wrap
having
this-
4% Justin Fields.
Yeah, have
Couldn't
fun
be
saying
me.
poor.
4% comfort, please, Blanky. All right, that was fun,
All right.
guys. Go Celtics.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Go Justin
go
Fields.
Celtics.
Justin Fields.
Everyone knows where to find everyone, so we're not gonna.
Oh
Not gonna
wait,
do
I do
that
have a
whole
thing.
thing.
We're jumping
All
over
right.
in the Leg Up Discord. We're gonna do a little sneak preview of a tool we've been working on the last few
Yeah,
months.
the
over in
show.
Leg
The
Up
show.
Discord.
Oh, nice.
You sent that tweet out, and I was like pretty optimistic, thinking you're getting out of here in a 2
Yeah,
hour.
originally supposed to be 2:30, but here we are.
Yeah, that was good luck. You can get plus 145 Jaylen Brown Finals MVP. Make sure you get that in. Anyway.
That is a good